Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us, that helps the bands and artists like Mr. Nik Greeley next to us here. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters, RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. So, Mr. Nik Greeley, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Doug. Really happy to be here this evening.
Absolutely, man. So, it is Monday night. This is Nik Greeley and the Operators. Nik, how long have you guys been together as a band?
I would say that the Operators has been solidified as a band since 2016 now, so almost 10 years.
So when you say that 10 years, like, does that oh my God, does that shock you? Or are you like, yeah, that sounds about right?
Sounds about right, because my there's a thing that I think is like a thing, but I think every band finally reaches usually the hump when they hit the 10-year mark. Usually when you start to hit your stride and actually start to I don't know, get into that, especially as a local band or a regional band that's worked hard for a while, it's that 10-year mark that you finally are starting to break through a little bit, you know. Yeah. So for me it's it's totally just been part of the process, let's call it, you know.
So who in your family is musical? Do you have any sisters, siblings, mom and dad? Who, or are you kind of the lone wolf in the music community of the family?
Mom and dad are huge music lovers, and my mom is particularly very artistic. So actually, me and my brother, who are very much the musical people in the family. My bro is an excellent singer, and when I was younger, because my bro is 10 years older than me, he was in all the plays, he was in the choir, he was playing piano, he was acting, he was super into music. So much of my taste and influence in music, art, and books, and all sorts of stuff come from my older brother, David. So he had huge influence on me, but I had the best of having my parents' huge music collection and then my brother's, and then they would intersect too, because my parents would also be hear stuff that my brother was listening to or I was listening to and be like, oh, that's cool. So definitely just a music loving fan, big time, all very big music fans, you know, even outside of musician stuff, just love music.
Yeah. So born in New Jersey, but basically Philly based for most of your life, correct?
Yeah, for the most part. I grew up in a town called Marlton, yeah, which is 20 minutes outside of Philly. So Philly's always been the immediate city, but my mother and my dad both grew up outside of New York, and my mom's side of the family for years still lived in North Jersey, Nutley, Montclair area. So we would also go up to New York a lot. So I was constantly back and forth mainly throughout my life between Philly and New York area, you know, as far as cities are concerned.
Yeah. Montclair is a really cool town. There's a really cool music venue there called the Wellmont Theater.
Beautiful theater. I saw not J-Rab, but it was Benevento, I think it was Benevento Russo duo or something. This was a long time ago, but they're kind of I know they're from that area, so I think that's why they were playing up there. But yeah, I love that theater. It's very cool. And Montclair, you know, that's just that whole Nutley, Montclair, Belmont, all that stuff is big part of my memories as a kid. And my aunts lived in Newark also, so I was very familiar with that whole sector of North Jersey, big time.
Yeah, there's a really good, I don't know if it's still there because it's been a little while since we've been to a show there, but there's a really good Brazilian restaurant that was 4 or 5 buildings down from that Wellmont Theater that we went to a couple times.
Brazilian. There's a spot up there, a hot dog spot up in that area called Rutt's Hut, which is legendary. If you're ever in the Nutley area, you got to go to Rutt's Hut, bro.
Okay.
Get some dogs.
In Nutley for a hot dog.
Yeah. Mark my words. And it's just like this amazing roadside place where like all the comfort foods that exist are there, but like they're known for their dogs.
Yeah.
Big urban lore with the roadside. But there's all sorts. I mean, I like all the great Italian bakeries and food. I mean, I'm just like that was like the shit I miss growing up, like Sunday dinners, going up there, seeing everybody eating more food than I possibly can imagine, and like all my aunts like coming around giving me money. I love that shit. It was fun.
It still happened, right?
Nothing like a good sit down family dinner, which I don't get many of those these days. So those memories, very, very close to me. I still talk to my mom about that stuff all the time.
Yeah, definitely. So starting out as a band then, like what music venues kind of latched on to you, or what, talk about like that grind, like when you first started out, as a band, trying just to get gigs.
I definitely like, before I started the Operators, before I got into Swift Technique, I was in another band, and I just worked it from the ground up. I just like, I was emailing and doing all like the DIY, like representing the band, promoting, like, and that's how I really learned, and that's how I ended up getting the job. I ended up landing at Ardmore Music Hall, but I just hustled. I hustled really hard, and I got to know a lot of the promoters and people playing around town because I started booking the shows, but I also started like going to a lot of people's shows, and I started just like hanging out, and I still preach that to a lot of people to this day, like even in the whole social media bullshit of like having a following and content and all this shit. So I still think the most powerful thing that you can do is just hang and like get to know people and be at the shows and meet people and interact with them and play good festivals and whatever, and like that's to me that's still how you really get a real following. You meet and make connections with people that either become friends or can help you along in your career. I believe in that, like big time. So like I was just hustling really, really hard, getting to know everybody. And then I feel like the venue that I really latched on with and that changed my life and that like propelled me to where I am today and that I learned so much from, Ardmore Music Hall, So without a doubt, like that, my whole experience at Ardmore was 7 years from when I turned 25 to, I was 32. Was there, and like that's Chris Perella, who's the man behind Ardmore, and Tom Lindquist, who was also one of the original owners and buyers, and my former marketing director Becky Blumenthal, and my other colleague, and who is now like the director of operations over there, Graham Noel. Like I just like learned. I got like the full rundown of like music business 101 stuff, and I thought that's what I was gonna do. Honestly, I really thought I was just like at one point I was very content at the thought of like just being a talent buyer and working behind the scenes, and I was like, I'll play shows and I'll play weddings and do the things I've been doing and play locally, but like I was like, I'm gonna like be a talent buyer. Like I was like pretty set on that for a while.
Yeah.
And then I was still playing great shows at Ardmore. I mean, even before I fully got into that mindset, like I opened for Gene Ween, which was my first really big show at Ardmore when Gene was Aaron, when he was on hiatus from Ween, and he was promoting his solo album. So that was a huge deal for me, huge Ween fan, and that was such a special night for me. The next show I did was Shuggy Otis, which was also just like fucking Shuggy Otis. For anybody who knows Shuggy Otis, if you don't fucking know Shuggy Otis and you're watching this shit, go get inspiration information right fucking now. Plays every fucking instrument on the album, like all these little tidbits. Shuggy also plays the original bass that you hear the recording on Peaches and Regalia with Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
He was just like a freak musician, dude. But anyway, that was the next show I played. So that was a huge deal for me. And then like biggest show, I feel like one of like as far as like playing in clubs and like people I've looked up to and legendary like feeling was opening for George Clinton and P-Funk. And I was like, I was like the happiest man in the world at that moment. I got to meet George and I got to meet all of them and hang out and talk to them and tell George like what he meant. And, I mean, he was just getting so high. He was just like, yeah, he's everything I was telling him. But it was cool. We were like, the green room was the greenest I've ever seen it that night. Billowing clouds. It was incredible. But I was just like cloud nine. I don't think I slept for 2 days after that because I was so happy because I had achieved a dream of like performing with an artist, and even for like Shuggy and Gene too, like with artists that like I like loved, so like meant a lot to me. Like, and P-Funk was like, has been a huge influence. I mean, so much like stuff with operators. Even when I was in Swift Technique, I mean, like P-Funk's always been like a band. Like the moment I discovered Funkadelic and Maggot Brain and all that music, like it just immediately was like connector. Especially with my love of like Jimi Hendrix and a lot of other like just psychedelic rock, and that's influenced by funk and blues music. Like I was hooked, man. Hooked. So huge deal.
So was your first instrument that you learned then a guitar or piano?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to be a singer. I did not want to be the front man singer. If anything, I wanted to be like the front man guitar playing guy. I wanted to be Trey Anastasio. I did not want to be.
Yep.
I did not know I was gonna like turn into like a front man, until like I really fell in love with it. As soon as more I started to do it, because to be honest with you, when I first started performing and playing music, I was not a good singer. I was very much discovering my craft, and like then I was so in love with just playing guitar, and I still am. I mean, like when I'm here and when I'm writing songs or I'm just learning music, like I have no better feeling than picking up the guitar. And I've been craving and wanting to just be the Ed O'Brien in a band. I want to be the third guitar player, or just the dude playing the riffs and just having the time of my life. You guys take the solos. I'll hold it down with the rhythm section all day.
Right.
Even your dude Dave behind there. I've always preached what a amazing guitar player he is, and that dude's just fucking riffing and playing rhythm all night. Yeah. Dave's a great example of like a guy that like I always like wanted to be more like. And then for a while, like in my early shows and stuff, I played a lot of guitar. If you look back on photos of me and my early band, and then also like even early Nik Greeley and the Operator stuff, like I'm playing a lot of guitar. But then I started playing with guys who were just like fucking ridiculously good. And also just like really getting into being more the front man guy. Because my favorite guys, are like Mick Jagger, Iggy Pop, David Bowie, Robert Plant. Like the dudes who like, I just like really just, command a stage, have presence. Mm. And I also really got into that when I was doing theater in high school. Like I started to really realize that I liked being on stage. And I started getting more confident with there. And then I was doing choir, so I started getting more confident in my voice. And then, so continue to work on it. And I really don't feel like I became a great singer or a better singer until Swift Technique and singing with Chelsea. And really, I feel like becoming like a better musician, pushing me to be like as good as I can be.
I think too, like, isn't oftentimes the lead singer, doesn't he kind of play an instrument because of like financial reasons, because you don't want to have like, so like it's for you guys, it is a nice situation to be in that you don't have to feel like, and like with the iteration that you guys have, and like you said, with the talented musicians that you have behind you, there's no need for you to be, to add to that, just be the lead singer, right? Be that front man.
Yeah, I love it. And I also feel like, a lot of my, the things that I do on stage or kind of how I approach the show, like are also influenced by my pal, Matt Butler of Everyone Orchestra. I've like really like, you'll see me sometimes. Like I love like throwing, different solos or trying to cut stuff or like really like, call the endings of songs. Like,
yeah.
And I've learned a lot of that and watch it because like watching Matt and like doing Everyone Orchestras And then when I was at Ardmore, Chris Perella is Matt's manager. So I worked a lot like behind the scenes with Everyone Orchestra doing like marketing and social media stuff and like having meetings with Matt. So like I did a lot of observing, and I think Everyone Orchestra is still one of the most unique things that there is, especially in live music. It's so original and fun, and when there are great shows, and there's been many, like you're just like, wow, this is like unbelievable that they're able to just the musicianship, it impresses you so much, and it's magic. There's a lot of magic in improvisation, as we've learned, and when it really clicks, there's nothing like it. So I've definitely picked up a lot of that, even like my whole get up with the overalls lately, and like the flair, and like just trying to like just like it's like my little suit, and then I get to take off that suit when I'm done, and then I'm just Nick. But it's like when you put on the suit, it's like when Batman or whoever is gearing up to fucking do their thing. That's how I feel when I put on the overalls lately, man. I feel like I'm Batman.
So how important is the set list to you in putting that together song wise, or does it really not matter to you?
Some shows it's very important to me. Some shows I'm like, guys, we've now done probably this set like a couple of times. Let's mix it up and let's be a little looser with this. And it really depends on my mood, or if I'm going into it and I want to read the crowd a little bit and see what the vibe's going to be like. I don't necessarily want to make a set list right away if I'm somewhere newer, or I don't know what the turnout's going to be like that night, and don't necessarily want to like blow my load on playing a high energy set, and maybe want to pace it differently if the crowd's a certain energy, or if there is like fucking even a smaller crowd, but I feel like there's a rowdiness. Like I'm always trying to read that, especially when we've been on the road and have played different places and newer times. Like I always try to go in there with a little bit more of an open mind than maybe having a set list. But then there's certain festivals where I just know I'm like, this will fucking kill if we put together this set. Or if I'm opening for Andy and thinking about that crowd and just being like, all right, I know this is gonna be a killer show because X amount of tickets are sold, and let's kick off this show with a fucking bang because we should get this crowd revved up and ready. I don't want to come out and play slow numbers for an Andy Frasco show. I want to set the bar for the night. And I think as an opener, I've always tried to look at it that way. When I'm on support, I want to come out and have people go, whoa, that was the opener? I got the rest of the show? That's the best feeling. And those make for the best shows.
Yeah. I don't like this trend, though, that I'm seeing with like mid-tier bands that aren't doing opening bands, where you're getting this evening with, or like Mountjoy I've seen do it, Dawes has done it, other bands I've seen done it. Like, guys, opening bands, like, what are we doing?
And you know what? And then I don't disagree with you, but from the other side of it, it comes down to money.
Right.
It's a music business decision. It's not that maybe they don't even want to have an opening band. It's that they're told that like, well, we're gonna, if you don't sell X amount of tickets, then blah blah blah. And if you have the opening band, and if you just play a 2-hour set from 8:30 to 10:30, you'll make X amount, and it's better. It's all that crap, man. A lot of times, like, yes, you look at the band and you're like, what the hell, man? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Just half the time it's not their decision. It's really not. It's the powers that be, the strings,
Yeah.
Because that's where we're at with a lot of this, man. I mean, you're seeing it across the board more and more, like, and that's why you're starting to see these packaged like super tour stuff too in the jam world, like more like you have the Andy Pigeons, Dogs in a Pile thing, and it's a great package. That's such a great cohesive unit, and it seems like they're definitely selling good tickets, and pre-sales have been good, but God, there's so much pressure now on everybody for all this shit. That's why you have to package more people together too, because there's still a weight on all those guys, even when they're out on the road doing their things. And everybody I just mentioned on their own, Dogs, Pigeons, and Andy are all clearly like selling tickets on their own too and doing well. But like it's still like there's always like more. And we need more. It's more money. There's more people to feed and agents, and it's just such a cog, and it's so hard. That's why so many artists are feeling so frustrated and overwhelmed, because you're told to keep going and you need more and more. And oh, you did great, but we need more and we need more and we need you to put out more and we need more content because we need to keep funneling the coal into the engine, man. And then you get backed up and you're told that now you owe X amount for this management time and this PR and renting this van. Like, it's fucking nuts. And that's why, like, I commend a lot of the bands lately that have been very honest about where they're at and why they've chose to pump the brakes. I even saw Mikey Karuba, just talking about Mikey a little bit ago with you before we started. Like, he's put out a big thing last night on his Facebook, just saying that he's putting the halt on touring. That he just doesn't have it in him anymore. And this is a guy who's been going, like, even before Turquoise was, like, going very strong, like, on the road all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just being honest now, just being like, you know what, like, it's just not conducive to my lifestyle anymore, and I've had to sacrifice too much. And that's the stuff that people, like, from the outside looking in don't always understand about it, and there's so much that goes into it. And I think touring now is harder than ever post-pandemic life, which is why, like, I think right now every artist and every creative has to, like, come to terms of what, I guess, success really means to them. Because it's not the days of what we think, of the rock star lifestyle and all the things that we saw growing up, and we're like, we want to do that. Like, that's gone. That's all gone. And now it's just like, you have to be really honest with yourself and say, like, what is success for me? How am I going to define that for me as an artist? And the things that you've set in place and goals that you just want to accomplish and shows you've done. And man, you should always be proud no matter what. I think that's where I'm at now in my mindset with it, is I want to, eventually play Red Rocks and play at the biggest stages I can, but also be humble to the fact that, like, I'm still probably not going to be rich from it, or, like, or any of the stuff. I'm still probably going to be bartending and, like, making an honest living and continuing to wear different hats and weddings. But, like, that's where we're at in the world, man.
I think you're right, though. I think really to do and to be successful, you almost have to wear so many different hats, i.e. like what Andy's doing, like you're not only just the lead singer of a band, you're hosting a podcast, you're, promoting other stuff, you're working with Relics, you're working, you're doing all of this outside stuff. If you put all of that together, yeah, then you might have a chance at success. But if you're just in one lane, you got to have a hit single, or you got to have some luck, or you have to,
or a TikTok page that's phenomenal. Right. It's so silly, but that's the thing. And I think that's where a lot of cats get overwhelmed.
And the devaluing of music, it's just so sad. Like we complain about $12 a month to listen to unlimited amounts of music. like it's crazy, like it's really, really crazy, and these.
It is. But Mikey said it in kind of his closing statement, like, to please continue supporting live music. How important it is right now to, like, simply buy pre-sale tickets, buy the merch, go and leave a good review. Like, all these things that we kind of roll our eyes at sometimes, go, yeah, like, they're going to be like, whatever, they're going to be fine. Like,
yeah,
it's like all the crap now, on top of all the crap that you already have to do leading up to just get to that show and get to that point before you play one note. So, that's why lately I've kind of been, like, surrendering to the flow of it and just being grateful for all the amazing fucking opportunities and people and heroes and things that I've gotten to do. I feel very fucking blessed and grateful. Like that, and it's, like, far from over, but just what I've been able to do now in the last, it's been almost 15 years now that I would consider myself like a professional musician, like really going after it and playing, on a professional level. And I'm proud of all that. And I'm not, like, fucking super famous or haven't done all the things I want to do. And fame's a weird thing anyway, so I don't even know. Like, but I feel successful is what I'm trying to get at. Even in my like moments of just feeling maybe low about something with creative life or the music business or being bogged down, I'm like fucking proud of everything I've done. And I think that's what kind of separates me sometimes from some of my friends or peers that I think are even harder on themselves about where they're at or can be content maybe on the same level that I can because they haven't played Madison Square Garden and because they're not riding around in a limo with porn stars. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But I'm just like, guys, like, and this is something I've learned through therapy too, is like when you start practicing gratitude more, something opens up in you more, you know, and you let go of other things that have been bogging you down. You let go of anger or jealousy or other, like, you know, just negative feelings. When you're really practicing more gratitude, light opens up. And I think like that energy attracts other people, you know, always. So I'm always trying to be mindful of that these days, man. And I am. I mean, even this last year, I am like very pumped and grateful how things have been going.
So what led you then to leave Ardmore and go to Johnny Brenda's, or was there a transition in between that, or was it kind of right from there to Johnny Brenda's then?
Well, I hate to go back to the old mighty M word, but simply money, man.
Yeah.
You know, money. And there, I had a big chip on my shoulder towards the end of my time at Ardmore because of feeling like I'm fucking working my dick off and I think I should be making X amount of money. And I just wasn't making it. And I just finally like, it's time to move on. It was time for a change. I think we like, it was just like a collective. And it was very hard. You know, it's like, I felt so much of my identity and my heart there. It was a very tough, heartbreaking time. And it was one of those times in my life, and the universe tends to do this at times where everything was coming at me at once. There was things going on at home. There was now leaving Ardmore. I had like fucked up like kind of like a relationship and a girl that I really liked because I had like gone back to some old habits. And I had to be like super reflective. And this all happened like right before the holidays. This was right before 2023.
Okay.
And I had to be very honest with myself and just be like, you know, like it's time for a change. And change was so fucking scary for me. And change can be fucking scary. It's part of change. I'm so glad I fucking made the changes. I'm so glad I came out the other side of that and went back to a place like Johnny Brenda's and kind of my roots in hospitality, but also a fucking true rock and roll bar and a place that like meant a lot to me as just a person in the Philly community that has been seeing shows there for the last 12 years or however long it's been. And yeah, I feel so fucking thankful that I decided to just go back and work in that side of things. Cause I for a while I was like, I'll never go back to serving or bartending or any of that. But I needed it. I needed to get away from the music business. I needed to like get away from what I was becoming. I was becoming very black and white about it and cynical. And I was losing the magic of like why I got into music in the first place. And it wasn't to crunch numbers or look at, you know, how the bar did or, you know, worry about the cap of the room that night. You know, she's like, I'm like, fuck this shit. So while all that was incredibly invaluable and a learning experience, I needed to get back to the root of like why I'm doing this or like do I want to do this? And I found through now going back and working at JB's and like refocusing on just being creative that yeah, I needed that. I needed that big time. And then I think it's shown because ever since I made that change, the shows and my music and everything really started to pick up again. And then it led me back to where I am now, like opening these 2 shows for Andy recently that you saw me at and like playing with Pigeons and just like playing consistently really good gigs over the last year. All was because I made that shift. Otherwise, I would have been in the mindset of just still continuing to work at Ardmore, booking the shows, working behind the scenes, and like being hopeful that I was finally going to make that salary that I felt like I was going to make as a talent buyer, like that I thought a talent buyer should be making. But also to Ardmore's credit, you know, it's an independent venue, and there's only so many mouths to feed. and there's only so much money to go around, and it also has investors, and there's people you have to adhere to, and those are all things that I know, but I just wanted to be part of that inner circle of mouth feeding. It just felt like after 7 years I would maybe get there. Lesson in the music business: don't ever expect anything. Don't expect anything in general, right? Hard work, and then also knowing your worth, and just being honest. Like, we all have to make a living wage, and that was the toughest thing for me, was just being like, I still can't afford to live doing a job I love. Like, God, I still think about going back to it. I still would love to go back to it without having to work for Live Nation or AEG or one of these big cog bullshit things, and actually make a living wage. But it's so hard, man. Yeah. It's so hard. But you know what? Bartending's going great, brother. I love it.
Dude, I bartended Trogs, man.
I found another part of myself through bartending, because being a bartender is like being a front man. It is a fucking show, bro. And I gotta be on most times.
Yeah, I feel you.
Be on, dude. Or else I ain't getting 20%.
That's right.
And even sometimes when I am on it, you get the fucking jerk off who ain't tippy, because I got a whole theory that everyone in their life should have to work in hospitality for at least a year of their life, front of house and back of house. So maybe that more people won't be jerk offs in the world.
Agree. So what's been your favorite show at Johnny Brenda's that you've seen?
Well, I'll start with recently. Lotus just released their new album and played Johnny Brenda's. Doesn't get any fucking cooler than that for me. Lotus has always been a band that I've loved, and always been very proud that they've been from Philly and represent the Philly scene, and getting to know Jesse and Mike Greenfield now over the years, and just loving those guys, and they're good dudes, and also really supportive of the Philly scene. That was a special night, and they crushed it. And I love now Tim in the band, and it's just taking the music, I think, to new heights, and people just I love it. When you reach the peaks now, just feel wow. Tim knows how to take it there. He's a guitar hero, man. Yeah. He's one of those guys. And it was just such a really, 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 really cool night. But then I would have to cite that from going there and seeing shows at Johnny Brenda's, let's just go back before I was even working there. Going to shows. Easy. Jim James, solo. He released A New Life, and he was playing all these small clubs, and he fucking played Johnny Brenda's, and I went, and it was amazing. It was so sardined, it was crazy. But I got there early, and I fucking made sure I had a good seat, and in the fucking right downstairs, and it was special, man. It was just another moment of just seeing my hero in such an intimate setting, and Johnny Brenda's was the spot at that time. It was so hard to get a gig at Johnny Brenda's around that period of time. There was this guy who was booking the room called Chris Ward, and Chris Ward, I don't like using the word gatekeeper. It's tough, but Chris Ward was a gatekeeper, but in the sense that he was establishing something that was he was cultivating this sacred coolness of Johnny Brenda's. And if you did play there, you felt it. And you still feel it when you play there now. It's still a big deal to play Johnny Brenda's because of the history, and it's a legendary spot. But at that time, it was just felt wow, how do you play Johnny Brenda's if you're just a local band? And it was very hard. And local bands did play there, but they were always the local bands, the Hop-Alongs and the Districts, and the bands like Kurt Viles and War on Drugs, all these bands that were about to be on the cusp of blowing up. Yeah. They were always so good about that. I mean, there's so many stories, people just being I saw so-and-so before they played, and it was at Johnny Brenda's. And I think over the last 20 years, no other venue could probably say that in Philly more than Johnny Brenda's. I think it's simple as that. And the only one that I would say is closer, or you could argue is maybe more, is Sean Agnew and R5 Productions and what he did at the First Unitarian Church, because also another place where everyone saw so-and-so before they blew up. And such a unique place to see a show in Philly, because it's just this unassuming fucking dimly lit, weird room. It's so hot and ceiling fans, but you see some of the best shows ever there.
Yeah.
So I would say those two have really like morphed and like have shaped what people look at as the Philly music scene over the last 20 years. No doubt.
I was really sad when the Trocadero closed. I loved the Trocadero. I loved Chinatown, so it was great to go to like a restaurant like before the show, like you're right there. I was sad when the Trocadero. I've not seen a show at the TLA in a long time. Is the TLA still doing shows?
TLA is still doing shows, but the booking there, I couldn't tell you who plays the TLA anymore. And Franklin Music Hall, which is now Electric Factory, has kind of gone a similar direction where I've looked at their billings and I'm just like, I can't tell you who any of these people are. Like randomly, I'll see somebody. I'm like, oh, okay, like Alan Stone's playing the TLA or Maggie Ross. I don't know. Yeah. And then I'll see blah 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 blah. I'm like, I must be old and out of touch because I don't know these artists. So I really can't say. And it's so cool that you mentioned the Troc because the Troc was one of those venues for me too. Loved going to the Troc. Mm-hmm. Playing at the Troc was a huge deal for me. Getting to play on that stage was a big deal. That was like another like very like big local show moment for me in Philly. Knowing the history of that stage, knowing that the Even Flow video was filmed. There's like all these random tidbits about the Troc, And my parents, like when they first moved to this area back in the 80s, like that's where they were seeing big shows. So they, you can imagine what a kick they got out of it when they saw me like play there the first time, all that shit. Like, and you know what? It's sad. It's still just sitting there. They haven't even made it into like condos or a restaurant or anything. Like it is just sitting there.
Yeah.
And from what I also know from like some behind the scenes music, business stuff is the woman that apparently still owns the Trocadero, the rights to it, is pretty tough. And she's not willing to really relinquish it unless she gets the offer she wants. And apparently it's just a ridiculous,
Yeah.
And it's like, why let this place rot? I mean, God, can you imagine if they refurbished the Troc? If someone had the money and the gusto, like to fucking say, you know what, fuck you, I will fucking turn this place into the place it deserves to be.
It'd be like the Met.
It would be like the Met, but even with even more intimacy.
Yeah.
It'd be like mini Met, and people would be knocked out. One of the last big shows there before they closed was like Kendrick Lamar did like a crazy pop-up show there. Yeah, did a crazy. So Kendrick played there. I know this because my former colleague and friend Graham was working that show, and he said it was just such an amazing, incredible night. And then I have a story with the Troc. One of my favorite singer-songwriters is a guy named Mac DeMarco. You might be familiar with Mac. I love Mac, and he's like one of my very, very favorites. And he was playing the Trocadero. And from playing the Trocadero, I know they have their little back alley thing and, where you load in or where artists go out to smoke. And he's a big smoker. So I couldn't help it. The show was sold out, and I was like, I'm going to try to meet him and just say what's up. Because I know he's going to go out back for a cigarette.
Yeah.
And that Trocadero alley, it is one of the smelliest alleys in Philadelphia. It's not an alley for the faint of heart. But I stood out there for like a half hour, like a fucking creep fanboy who just like dying to meet Mac. And he finally came out. And I stumbled over with my cigarette too and tried to casually just like act walking up. And I was like, all right, I just have to say it. I'm a huge fan, and I just wanted to come over and tell you that, man. And just like told him how much his music meant to me, especially at that point in my life. And he was like very like surprised at my approach, and he was like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "My name's Nick, man. I'm actually a musician in Philly too, and I just really I've played a Troc, so I just felt compelled because I knew you would come out here for a cigarette. I just wanted to say hi." And they all laughed, and they were like, "Dude, let's get a picture. Like, what's your favorite song?" And I told him what my favorite song was, and he was like, "All right, I'm putting you on the guest list. We're playing the song tonight. You better be in the crowd. So don't let me down." And I was like, "What?" It's like he's like, "I mean it. Like, I'm putting you on the guest list. So you better come to the show now." And he put me on the guest list, and I went, and of all things too, I ended up sitting next to like my buddy who like I played guitar in my old band, and we got to like see the show together. It was a crazy night. But yeah, like, that was an amazing memory. Truck has a lot of amazing memories for me like that. I saw Wu-Tang Clan there, which is one of the craziest fucking shows I've ever seen. Everyone smoking weed, which was, a big no-no back in the day. I was like, this was like the days of like you would get like thrown out or like arrested for like smoking inside, and it was just like all bets off. Like everybody fucking light it up. It was awesome. Also, a big Wu-Tang fan. Love Wu-Tang Clan.
Inspect the deck.
Protect your neck, motherfucker. So like I was like, so many memories of that. So like, I saw this show when I was like 15. That was the other thing. We were going, like, my group of friends in high school and the guys that I was hanging out with, we were all a little older than me. We were all going to shows almost every weekend in Philly. And it was like a mix of like shit like that, but then also like Disco Biscuits, STS9, Mo, Umphreys. We were deep in the jam scene at that time, and this is post Fish World. So the jam world is like wide open.
Yeah.
Like wide open, and a lot of the shows were at Electric Factory. So we would go to the Electric Factory a lot to see everybody play. And at the time, I remember they were trying to tout Umphreys as kind of like the next band. Like they were at that time, Umphreys was almost Goose-esque, that everyone was looking to them to be like the mantle bearers for Fish. I remember that, So I actually got really into them, and those first couple albums, I was like super into them. One of my best friend, Matt, was a super Umphreys fan, and we met them a couple of times. And like when Mantis was released, we did like this CID Consider It Dan behind VIP package when they played Nokia Theater, hung out with them. It was, like I said, like I just got super into the jam scene and was going to all those shows and seeing a lot of Biscuit shows too, and was like very supportive of the Biscuits and Lotus, especially the Philly scene, and Brothers Pass too, which Tom Hamilton was in, and we were just like super into what was going on, and it was just such an exciting time to be going and seeing all these bands and feeling like I was on to something that like no one else in like my high school really had any idea about. They're just like, what bands are you going to see? What the fuck are you talking? What? Disco Biscuit? And he'd be like, yeah, come man, it's great. Meanwhile, we're just like doing all sorts of crazy shit. And like there was this little sector of the Electric Factory called Nitrous Alley. This crazy alley where it wasn't just nitrous, you find anything from grilled cheese to heroin was available in Nitrous Alley.
Yep.
And that's where we were hanging out, partying, and like you can imagine, plenty of my friends' parents were very scared to see their kids be going out to Philadelphia, hanging out with Nik Greeley. But they always came home in one piece, Doug. Always came home in one piece.
Yeah, I never liked going to the Electric Factory. I thought it was a horrible experience. Like the sound was awful. Like especially when it was like full. Like now, thankfully, I'm tall, so like. But if you were under 5'7", like you were not having a good experience at that show. So we saw the best concert though I saw there. We saw Muse at the Electric Factory, and I thought the walls, like the back walls, were gonna blow out of that building. Like
that's sick.
Fucking insane. Like that night.
That's sick.
Yeah.
The last show I saw there was King Gizzard, and I'm actually going to see them tomorrow night. I'm going with a friend of mine. Do you know Ray Decker?
I haven't gotten into King Gizzard. Like, what do you like about them? What?
Jesus, I love that they're just like, I don't know, man. I don't think there's ever been a more prolific, fucking diverse, just band of their caliber. How does a band put out like 8 albums in a year? How does a band go from like very psychedelic, almost Zappa-esque rock to like doom metal to like they like a microtonal album they did? I mean, they have so many facets to them that I don't know if there's ever been a band like them. I think that's what I'm most intrigued by, and how they all switch instruments throughout the show, to see how the crowd responds to them. I mean, you like you have like just fanatical. There was a lot of people that didn't go to Fish this weekend that went and saw them in Queens, and who are also traveling to see them now tomorrow in Philly. Like they have cultivated their own thing, and you also have guys like Trey who have like championed them. You know, so like the Jam World has also been like on watch with them now too, to be like, well, Trey's checking us out. Who would be banging?
Right.
But they're the real deal, man. You know,
Okay.
and I'm not saying they're an expert in their catalog, but like I'm blown away by just their output. You know,
Do they
if
play in
anyone
Wells
isn't
Fargo?
phased, not yet. I mean, don't be surprised if they do. They're playing what's called the Dell Center, which is actually a really cool venue. That's in
Oh.
Strawberry Mansion in Philly, right around the corner from my house. But like, they only have like I forget. I think they only do like 10 shows a year. It's a very small calendar.
And they're from
Um,
Australia, right?
yes, they're from Australia, but now I think this is their second world tour. Like, they've already fucking like have like spanned the world. I think twice now. They have like 20 albums.
Dude,
They sold out Forest Hills 2 night. I mean, dude, they're doing it.
we
They're
go to
gonna play
South
Madison
by
Square
every
Garden.
year. We go to South by every year, and like I am amazed at like the bands that come out of Australia. Like Australia, no, like there is some great music coming out of Australia.
There's a lot of very talented, cool musicians and artists coming out of Australia. I mean, I love Tame Impala. I think Kevin is just like he's a fucking mad scientist dude. He's like Shuggy Otis, man. He's another guy. He's a super producer, plays everything, just like so fucking talented. And Giz is like, yeah. I mean, I'm just blown away by the output, man. I feel lazy, like so lazy compared to a band like that. You know, like we're all lazy. What's all of our excuse? We're not putting out 8 albums a year. What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, I mean Jack White's probably the only one that can kind of keep up with that, right?
And he's not even fucking trying, man. He's
Yeah.
just content with being Willy Wonka over there, the third man. But yeah, I'm excited to go see them. They were excellent when I saw them at Franklin Music Hall, and the first time I ever saw My Morning Jacket by themselves was at Franklin Music Hall when it was at Electric Factory, and it was a great bill. It was My Morning Jacket, Benevento Russo duo, and the Slip. I don't know if you remember the Slip, but the Slip consists of
Yeah.
the Bar Brothers, and they
Yes.
had an amazing record that they put out called Eisenhower, and it was just like a super bill. And
Okay.
Jacket didn't go on till like almost 11, and they played till like almost 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was just like fucking amazing, man. You know, the jacket was, to me, is like rock and roll church. You know, it's like it's very near and dear to me, similar to like with you with Pearl Jam, and Eddie definitely takes it to that spiritual rock place as well that Jim also takes it to.
But neither of them are as good as Radiohead, as we've already talked about. So I will tell you my Radiohead story for that you will appreciate. So this is 6 years ago, the day after Easter. I am with my two youngest kids, or my oldest daughter and my middle son at the time. So because my youngest wasn't born yet. So we get a lane at the bowling alley, and my mom and my nephew and niece, like she was bringing them like like in a little bit, but we got there first, right? So we get a lane, and this family, probably within about 10 minutes, like gets the lane next to us. And I'm looking over, and because of course I'm a curious guy. I'm like, man, this guy looks really familiar.
No
And
way.
so, we bowl a couple of lanes, and I kind of like notice like him putting his name up on like the thing, and it says Colin.
Fuck, dude.
And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what the hell is he doing here?
The fuck is Colin Greenwood doing in the polling?
What is he doing in Lancaster, Pennsylvania? Right?
What's he
Like
doing?
the
Is he
day
at
after
Lidditz? Were they
Easter.
rehearsing at Lidditz? Were they?
No, his
Yeah.
wife is from Lancaster County.
The fuck?
Yeah, so they alternate holidays between England and between like this area. Like, so yeah, he was with his family. He introduced me to his sons. Like, thankfully, like I said, my mom, this was longer than 6 years ago. This is probably like 10 years ago. But anyway, I didn't have like my cell phone didn't have like a camera on it. So like I told my mom, like, hey, if you haven't left yet, bring your camera. And she's like, why? I'm like, don't ask, just bring your camera. So sure enough, he let me take pictures with him. I had my King of Limbs CD in the car. He signed my King of
That's
Limbs
awesome,
CD.
man.
Like, it was amazing.
Was he soft spoken?
Very soft spoken. Yeah. Yeah. Very soft spoken. Didn't say much, but I asked him, I said, your bass line on the national anthem is like one of the greatest bass lines in the world. And he laughed and he's like, Tom actually wrote that.
True story. And I think that something like Tom has actually had that riff since he was like 10 years old or something.
Oh,
I
man.
read an interview once. He's had that since he was a kid,
Yeah.
and when he first started playing guitar. It's pretty wild to think about because that riff is just like
Iconic.
it's so sinister about
It,
it.
it's so sinister. Yeah. It's
It's
like
so
Phantom of the Opera-esque. It's like very Broadway, like very theatrical.
to me it feels sinister and urgent and just like you can feel the tension
Yeah.
mounting. Have you ever read the Chuck Klosterman theory on Kid A and his whole theory about how Kid A lines up with the events of 9/11? You ever read?
No, I
I
know
believe
Chuck Klosterman, but I've not read that.
I think he writes about it in Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs, or the other one that's like Fargo Rock City, or it's one of the books, but
Okay.
he does a whole theory of Kid A lining up with the events of 9/11, and it's pretty compelling and fascinating. And there's also this very eerie, amazing Danny Clinch photo of that he took of Radiohead right in August of 2001, right before 9/11, and they're on a ferry, and the Trade Center's in the background. And I think it was right before they either played Madison Square Garden or Roseland Ballroom, and just crazy, like
Yeah.
very eerie. And I just feel that Radiohead has been on like so far ahead of just the pack for so long. I feel like they're just like if there is a Beethoven or Mozart of rock or our time that people look to and are just to me just blown away by the art or just it's them. It's the same way I feel about the Beatles or Pink Floyd or even Jimi Hendrix or guys that just like also masterfully used the studio as an instrument. Radiohead's always been so brilliant about that too, and it's cool that you met Colin because my best friend Matt actually met Nigel Godrich very randomly, and it was somewhere in New York. It was like a bookstore or something, and he was like so freaked out because only so many people also know who Nigel Godrich is or
Right.
looks
Right.
like. You have to be like a super freak fan to know that shit
Right.
because Nigel is the George Martin
Yeah.
of Radiohead, no doubt.
Yeah.
And he's done so much even with the Atoms for Peace stuff, and he Tom is like certainly like that's his right hand man. But God, I could just go on and on. Radiohead's just fucking absolutely brilliant, man, and will always be my favorites. And if any, and I don't even hesitate when people ask me. And some people are often surprised when I tell them that Radiohead's my favorite band because of the whole notion that they're just such a sad band. I mean, it's just sad band. Or I get the friends who are like, it's fucking voice, man. It's fucking what the fuck. I'm like, I just don't get it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just know that like that's like the highest art to me in terms of rock music because it goes so far beyond that.
Yeah. I think when you were talking about the national anthem and that bass line, like I, the song "The Daily Mail," I think that song represents like all of that,
Oh,
like
fuck!
tension and like that
What
song is so good,
what an incredible fucking song!
so good.
Again, a song for this time too.
Yeah.
Like the loonies are running the asylum.
Yeah.
It's fucking it's where we're at, and the way that song builds because Radiohead's music is so cinematic. It's one of their strongest assets as a band is how they arrange their songs and how they build their songs. You can just listen to exit music for a film. It's just like the perfect. If you don't get goosebumps from that shit, I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel for you because
Yeah.
it's incredible. Just the slight right before it fucking the drums hit and Phil Selway's just hitting the ride cymbal, and Tom Slick's just saying they're such a chill. You're just like, what the fuck? This music, and it's the best headphone music ever too.
Yeah,
You know,
it's funny
that's
too.
like
It's the
ultimate
people.
headphone music.
The people that love like Coldplay's "Fix You" are the same people that like Radiohead. I'm like, what?
Motherfucker, where do you think you're? Please. You think you're fucking getting this shit.
It's the same feels, people. It's the same feels. So let's I want to do a 180 because I want to talk sports with you because I know you are a huge sports fan all around. I mean, obviously, let's talk about Phillies first because we're in the season, but I want to talk a little Sixers too because
we'll cover it all.
Okay. So your favorite or your most fondest memory as a Phillies fan is what?
Cool. Going to Game 3 of the World Series with my best friend Greg, who is also a baseball fanatic, but he's a fucking Yankees fan, but he's a baseball fanatic.
Okay.
And it was the game that the Phils hit like 5 homers. You know, it was like just like utter euphoria. You know, for me, that was a huge bucket list night to go to the World Series. Always wanted to go to a World Series or just any major sporting event of that kind. Never been to a championship event. It was a huge deal for me. And to see the game I saw, very special. So for me, that's got to be number one. I wish we obviously fucking won the World Series, but to be in the building and to feel the electricity and the excitement and oh god, it was. I had my hair just standing up thinking about it. It's fucking amazing.
Well, and like we talked about earlier too, like being at the Pearl Jam shows for those Spectrum closing nights with like the World Series going on too, like you can't get much better than that.
No, man, and God, I feel like I can like smell and feel that period of time because we were like all of us were either like down there tailgating and hanging out or like watching the games at home, and you know, going to that first night of the Spectrum too was like bittersweet because it was a great fucking show. I mean, program always rocks, but I was like bummed that the Spectrum was leaving. Saw so many concerts and like hockey games and early Sixers games at the Spectrum. So bittersweet, definitely.
Yeah.
But that was, you know, obviously, you know, losing to the Yankees fucking pissed me off too.
I agree with you about the Spectrum because I saw Iverson's 52-point game against the Raptors.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
And awesome. Well, actually, no, that was Wells Fargo though. So yeah, that was not at the Spectrum. But yeah, like we saw countless games there. Not as many concerts at the Spectrum, but yeah, just a great venue. And like you always wonder, like, did you really need to tear it down? Could you have just kept it there? Like they kept the Forum in LA, you know, like
money and Xfinity Live is a fucking money dungeon pit that you won't find me in, but plenty of knuckleheads go there.
It's the worst setup, isn't it? Like, just talk.
I can't stand it. I've been dragged in there like on dates, and I'm like, why?
Yeah. I just hate that it's all in that area. Like it's it's the worst part of Philadelphia. Like
it's knucklehead central. Every knucklehead in the city goes to Xfinity Live. First time I ever saw Michael Jordan play was at the Spectrum. First time I ever saw my boy Muggsy Bogues, who was my second favorite player growing up, was at the Spectrum. Seeing Pearl Jam at the Spectrum was special. I used to be a huge Dashboard Confessional fan. I don't know if you know
absolutely.
Dashboard Confessional, but they headlined the Spectrum, and that's like 7th grade Nick fucking singing at the top of his lungs with like fucking I don't know many other 1,000 people, and all those shows come to mind. There was like a lot of like alternative rock shows that I saw there, like
Y100, right?
I saw Y100 Festival was there a few times. I saw Incubus there.
Yeah,
I could go down the list. I saw a lot of cool rock shows at the Spectrum, and I obviously wish I could have saw like shit like Floyd playing there, and the whole story with how Roger Waters was influenced by Comfortably Numb from his experience of taking painkillers backstage at the Spectrum, and like it's just part of rock and roll lore, man. There's a lot of shit went down at the Spectrum, man. Last time the goddamn Flyers had any glory was at the Spectrum. Racing the cup, man. I don't know when we're gonna see that. We talk Flyers too, man. But yeah, number one for Phil's is certainly the World Series, easily
Yeah.
going to the
So,
World Series.
like, how are you feeling about this season so far? I mean, it was a little rocky. It seems like they've kind of rebounded a little bit. Like, how are you feeling about this team right now?
Well, first and foremost, it's pretty unique and a cool feeling as a Phillies fan to start a season the way we did. And I don't normally like as just like observation of just baseball and knowing how long the season is. You get a little worried when your team might start a little hot, especially as a Philadelphia sports fan when you're so used to disappointment and meltdowns. You get a little worried about a hot start. But man, that was just fucking wild to see them just jump out the gate and just immediately start winning. I was at the series when they beat the Dodgers at home the first time and swept them. And I'm just like, I'm like, okay, now we're finally like shutting up the critics. I was also at the fucking series recently where we got our asses kicked by the Yankees 14-4. It was with my buddy Greg, the Yankees fan, who loved every second of that. But post All-Star break is so important in baseball. It's like great what you did before and like you're hot, but everything doesn't fucking really matter until we get into September. September and how you go into October is everything in baseball. It's like watching the Kentucky Derby, watching the horses come around the fucking they're coming around the corner. That's how I always think about it with baseball.
Yeah.
And I want my horse. I don't care if my horse is in third or fourth. I just want them to know when they're coming down that fucking pike, they're ready, man, and they see the finish line. And that's what made 2022 so unique, because they got by on like that third wild card slot that everyone bitching and moaning about. But I think that's the beauty of baseball, is that used to be like they just got on the skin, but they got so hot and they beat the fucking they beat Cardinals that first round, and beat the Braves, which I was there for the Braves. Being the Braves, seeing JT hit that in the park homer when we clinched, that's a special memory for me too, and always will be. That was one of the best days ever. Electrifying.
Who pitched that game?
Oh God, who did pitch that game? God damn it! It wasn't Wheeler, and it wasn't Nola.
And Suarez wasn't up then, but
Suarez wasn't our starter at that time.
Right.
It was someone else, and the name is escaping me.
Okay.
And I should know these things. They can go back in the archive and look at these things.
Rewind.
But man, I was also there last year when we beat the Braves in the LDS. I was at that clinching game.
Nice.
I feel so good to have the Braves number. From growing up and getting our asses kicked so hard because the Braves were so good.
13 seasons. Yeah, I mean,
I hated to admit how much I liked certain people on that Braves team. Yeah. I mean, I loved Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux is cool.
And Chipper Jones always killed us. Chipper Jones.
I hated Chipper Jones. I respected Andrew Jones. Andrew Jones is a fucking hell of a center fielder.
Yes, he was. That guy had a cannon on him.
God damn it! And I was the only time I ever rooted for the fucking Mets in my life is when they beat them that one year, because I hated John Rocker. It was just everyone was just done with the Braves at that point. We're just like, fuck the Braves, shut up. So it always feels good when we beat the Braves. But I feel like the move that they just made at the deadline to get what's his face, the hitter that they just got back from
the White Sox.
I don't want to underestimate the Braves, man. They're still a good team. We're lucky they've been as banged up as they are, or else it would be tighter. It'd be a lot tighter than it is right now. Biggest things I worry about with the team right now, I don't still think our bullpen is where I want it to be. I'm still worried about our relievers. We still don't have a true closer. That's what wins fucking championships. The bridge to Lidge won it in 08 because we had Madsen, who was the perfect setup guy, to Lidge. And Lidge was on fire. He was on Southpaw. He was our fucking Mariano. Like, when he was on, that was it. That's how we won that World Series. We don't have that still. I'm upset that at the trade deadline, I don't feel like we made the kind of moves I was hoping. I'm sorry, but I probably would have had Castellanos and Stott on the block, because they're probably worth the most right now in terms of getting people back.
Yep.
And Dombrowski, I really love and respect the guy, what he's done. We've had some really fun seasons, but I still don't think that this team is ready. I hate to admit that. I still don't think this team is ready.
Kimbrel was
With just
infuriating last year.
But okay, look how the D-backs just fucking handled us recently.
Yeah.
Because that team has figured us out. Because and I hate to give the playbook on it, but if you hang with the Phillies for 7 innings and keep it between 3 to 4 runs,
Yep.
and you have the kind of bats in lineup, and you wait for our bullpen to come in, you can come back.
Mm-hmm.
We've shown it all year long, and the Diamondbacks play great small ball. And that's the thing I want to see more with our bats. We have so many talented hitters. Our lineup is it's supposed to be deep. These guys are not hitting enough small balls. We're not getting enough singles. We're not getting, give me a fucking single. Just get on base.
Everybody loves the long ball, right? Yeah.
And, God, it's like nothing's more, like intoxicating than the long ball. And and when they were hitting the long ball, you're just like, wow, this team just like they're on fire. But then when the long ball goes away, it comes back to fundamentals, and this team is still guilty of not hitting enough small ball and leaving runners stranded. I watched it happen the other day at the alumni game. We had plenty of chances against the Nationals. If we just get a single or a double, just get guys in. Watching a great documentary right now on Pete Rose. And whatever you want to fucking say about Pete Rose, because Pete Rose, not a great guy. Okay? Not a great guy. But, man, as a baseball player, you just fucking got it.
Yeah.
Okay? No one fucking got small ball more than Pete Rose, man.
Yep.
Nobody.
Right.
So,
you're right.
That's where I'm at with this team, man. I just want to see more fucking fundamental small ball stuff. They still make knucklehead plays in the field sometimes. Some of their fielding stuff, I'm like, are we taking batting practice and fielding ground balls?
Like, what are we doing?
And some of our base running. And I hate to sit here and sound like I'm maybe being overly critical, but this is a classic Philadelphia thing, right? We care so fucking much. I can tell you while I say all this about them, and I've said this to more than one of my friends, I don't know if I've ever loved a Philly team more than I've loved this Phillies team. I think the only thing missing from the feather in this cap is a world championship. Otherwise, man, this team, the camaraderie, the chemistry, the way that you actually see that they're all friends and love each other, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Especially like when that first run in 2022 and Dancing on My Own is their rally cry, and you're just like, who are these guys, man? This is great. And I've really come to love Bryce Harper. I mean, I used to hate Bryce Harper. This guy's a douchebag. And no one has come into more of the Philly, has gotten it, has embraced the city, I think, more since Jason Kelce, like he has, man. Like Bryce Harper is our Superman, for sure.
Yeah.
That fucking homer against San Diego, that's the stuff of legend, man.
That's why you pay him $300 million. Yeah.
And he earned every dollar, and I give him credit for that because that's hard to live up to. That kind of cash, and especially in this town, everyone was ready to jump on his ass the first year because he was not great when he first started.
He was not great.
It was like Trey Turner.
Yeah.
It took Trey Turner a little to break into, man, but now it's been great to see Trey blossom and be the player that he is. He's a great player.
I think too that it was a real genius kind of backdoor business move by the Phillies to sign Harper, A, for the amount of money that they did, but for the length. Because if you're a fan, like the worst thing is to buy a jersey and then that player gets traded in 2 years. Like if you buy a jersey, you know that guy's going to be here for the next 10 years. You know, like that's, and if you sell like 3 times or 4 times the jerseys you would typically sell, that eats away your $300 million pretty quickly.
No doubt. And I got my powder blue Harper upstairs. I've worn it proudly many, many times. And you look around the ballpark, there's no doubt. You know, he's the most worn jersey there is.
Yeah.
It was cool though being at the alumni game the other day and seeing what everybody chose to wear. I wore my Roy Halladay jersey. It's Doc, watching Doc pitch a perfect game and a no-hitter, also very special in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Never forget things like that. I watched both of them live. So I was rocking Doc. I also got it because I turned 34 this year. Doc was 34.
Yeah.
But you're looking around, I love seeing like Scott Rowland jerseys, and there's a lot of Schmidt, Carlton, McGraw. Don't see a lot of Kurt Schilling these days. I don't think you'll be seeing Kurt
Doug
Schilling
Stallman?
much either. Dude, what a fucking terrible fucking debacle with that fucking idiot. That guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
But it's weird with that team on the 93 team, which is arguably the other most beloved team besides 08 or 1980 with Kruk and all those guys. God, man, all the shit that like went down with Dykstra and Dalton and fucking, it's just like, what the fuck was going on? Schilling, like they all really lost their fucking minds, man.
Yeah. Bobby Abreu was not on that team, right? 93.
No, but God, Bobby was there for alumni day yesterday. And,
was he? Nice.
He was one of my favorite Phils for a long time because he was like, when the Phil sucked, he was like one of the few dudes who was like, consistently hitting homers, good player.
Great swing.
Great swing.
Great
swing.
Yeah.
Doug Glanville, Mike Lieberthal. I mean, I could go on and on with all my old. I loved Scott Rowland. I was so sad when Scott Rowland left, man. I'm so bummed and then so devastated because I hate the Cardinals. Cardinals were my least favorite teams in sports. I hate the Cardinals.
They always play us tough too. Always play us.
Respectfully, they're a good fucking franchise. They've had good, consistent teams. Yeah. Remember that period of time we almost traded Pujols with Howard? Boy, we should have taken that deal.
all day.
But we thought that Ryan Howard was going to be Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
I think just couldn't learn how to fucking hit a curveball. Couldn't learn how to hit a curveball and couldn't lay off a high fastball.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Sixers, man. I've not been this excited about this team in a very, very long time. And not just about Paul George. I just like Maxey's the guy. Like Maxey is the dude. Like this team is only going to go as far as Maxey.
that reminds me. While we're talking Maxey,
yeah,
I'll bring over my little
bobblehead.
While we're talking, I got all sorts of collectibles here, but I'll hang out with Maxey because I believe in this guy big time. Man. This is the shining star. I got a hot take for you. I was saying this after the season. I was ready to trade Joel, man. I'm ready to part ways. It's hard for me to say because I really love JoJo. I got a JoJo jersey, man. I believe in JoJo. When I've seen him play at his peak, he's one of the most outstanding players and centers I've ever seen play, man. His touch, his grace. But then, there's things that drive you crazy with him that are going to continue to drive me crazy. This guy's the future. This is who we should be investing in completely. This is the ball should be the driver's seat. The green. I think he's getting it all too. From what I've seen, JoJo is always still going to be the first option, but this is the guy.
Yep.
This is the guy. So I love Maxey. I think we've made a lot of improvements on the bench that I'm happy about. I love that we just signed that French dude the other day. You see him from the French guy who played great. And I think put the world on notice. I think Morey did a nice little slip in there because that guy's going to play hard.
For a minimum contract? Why not? Like, if he could be the Oubre of last year?
I'm telling you, I got a great feeling that we're going to see like a very cool story develop with this guy and this bench. I'm excited for the first time in a while, not just to watch the Sixers. Basketball's my favorite sport.
Yep.
Basketball's favorite sport. Okay. I think East Coast basketball right now is really exciting. I hate to fucking admit it, but the Knicks are going to be fucking fun to watch.
Yep.
The Celtics are still going to be the Celtics.
Yep.
Watching these three teams do battle is going to be fun and good for basketball. Yep. And that's what I'm about, because the Knicks haven't been relevant for a long time, and I was convinced that James Dolan was just going to be so happy with Fish playing and what he has to say. I mean, just owning Madison Square Garden doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Do shit. But now the Knicks are actually relevant. And for basketball, when you have major markets like New York and Los Angeles doing well, it's good for the game, man. I wish we could see the same for the Bulls. I always have a soft spot for the Bulls too, because growing up as a '90s kid, you couldn't not like the Bulls, man. So if you know, and I'm sure the NBA wants Chicago to be more relevant too, because it's important for the whole Midwestern thing with basketball too.
Yeah.
So, dude, I am fucking very pumped, and I've been a tough critic on the Sixers the last several years because it's been a lot of the same story. I fucking hated Ben Simmons. I hated Doc Rivers. Had a lot of ill feelings towards the end with both of them. And the whole James Harden project, you know, as much as I was hopeful at first, James, you know, people are going to be who they are. James Harden's a crazy person. I'm so happy, though, that a guy like James Harden, though, at the same time saw a lot of potential in this guy. And you can clearly see that his confidence grew in Maxey from his experience with playing with a guy like James Harden. He hasn't dropped the kind of performance that he had at the Garden that we saw in front of a nationally televised game without that kind of experience and the work that he's put in. This guy's work ethic is incredible. If you follow him on social media, man, you see it and you hear guys preach about it. You hear the coaches talk about it. He's fucking in the gym
all the time.
Kobe style, 3 a.m. This guy's got big muscles now, too, coming into this season. He's done like the Steph Curry thing where he finally put on some weight. He's training his fucking ass off. You're going to see. Not only is he going to be an all-star this year, okay? He's going to be an all-star this year. They're going to be talking about this guy as a top 3 guard.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay?
I think it's you're right. I think the pieces around them, I think you're right. Tobias Harris was by far the biggest disappointment in the last 3 years. I mean, James Harden was a disappointment, but like when you can't score a single point in a playoff game, like I'm sorry, man. Like, you're supposed to be our third best player. Like he couldn't get an offensive rebound to save his life. Like his decision making was like you and I had better decision making on the court. Like I'm so glad that Detroit has him. I miss B-Ball Paul. I wish we could have kept B-Ball Paul.
Yeah,
his name is
I wish we could have kept
Paul.
Mellon too. Mellon was one of the few really like fucking good shooters who was like solid from downtown.
His back, you can't trust a player though with back issues. Like I get it.
I get it too. With all that said, though, I'm feeling strong about our bench. Our bench is much better and more reliable. And yes, Paul George is actually going to score points. Here's the thing, and it would make for a great story. But JoJo and Paul will always have on their backs that they can't get over the hump.
Loser mentality.
Great regular season players.
Yep.
Olympic gold medalists now. Potentially future Hall of Famers. Can't get over the hump.
Yeah.
What will be a great story is that if they do. And if they can prove to the basketball sporting world that they can beat the Knicks and beat the Celtics, I think they can beat anyone in the West at that point. I'm sorry. There's no one in the West right now that scares me.
No.
Nobody.
Oklahoma City, maybe.
Like, I'm excited about teams like the Timberwolves. I'm excited about teams like the Mavericks. I mean, how can you not love Anthony Edwards and Luka and even a team like Oklahoma City right now with Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous? Like, awesome. But none of those cats yet have the kind of veteran pedigree that the other teams have right now. And Boston, I hate to admit it, they can still potentially take the East, but I think it's going to be a much harder time for them this year. They're going to have much harder games in the regular season now. They're not going to win 60 games this year. Mark my words. They might win like 50-something, but they won't win 60 games this year and dominate the Sixers like they did. And even like it would have been so cool to see an actual full health, Celtics Knicks series. I think the Knicks, with the kind of momentum they had, could have surprised people and beat the fucking Celtics. I say that now confidently, man, because Jalen Brunson, that was fucking mind. Oh my god, I hate seeing these Villanova guys so fucking good on this team. I hate it.
We could have had Michael Bridges. I mean, they fucked that one up.
And you better fucking believe I was hopeful that was like trying, but I'm sure the moment that DiVincenzo, all of them walked on the team, those talks already were starting, man. They were starting that for a while. But, just another thing that the Sixers should have capitalized on years ago and planted the seed when they were at fucking Villanova.
His mom worked for the Sixers, didn't she?
Oh, all this shit. I mean,
yeah.
Trust the process. I don't want to hear that fucking bullshit. I trust Maxey.
That's who we trust.
This guy.
Yeah.
I trust Maxey. I want to trust JoJo and Paul George, but they got to prove it, and also they got to stay healthy, man. I don't want to see fucking JoJo flopping on the floor anymore. But are we ever going to stop saying that? No, because It's like him. It's like him showing his hustle and shit. But like, it's like, dude.
And the grifting for fouls, like I'm tired of that, man. Like
we're all seeing, we're tired of seeing that too. And he's a great free throw shooter.
Yeah,
he gets a lot of his points at the line, man. Iverson used to do the same thing though, but the difference between AI and JoJo is that AI went to the hole hard.
Right.
And we had partial season tickets growing up, and I saw AI play all the time. And I will still say it to this day. And AI was far from perfect. He had his things. He's chucking up 40 shots a game. I've never seen a player play harder. To me, he's like the Pete Rose of fucking basketball.
Agree.
Like, do you want to talk Charlie Hustle on the court? A guy that gave his heart every night I saw him play. And he was also growing up, he was the king of Philly. Allen Iverson was Philadelphia when I was a kid. He was my Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And for me, I grew up an even bigger Kobe fan, which is not a popular thing amongst my friends here.
Right.
But Kobe, God rest his soul, man. Kobe was my dude. And I was a basketball junkie, man. Until I realized I wasn't going to be 6'7" and like be able to like play at the level that I wanted to play at that height. I decided to go the music route, but I was a basketball freak, man. I played very competitively for a long time and was good. But then once the music bug thing hit and I started getting stoned, I veered towards, music. Realized, music was really cool.
So speaking of the NBA, I thought it was, did you design the NBA Jam sort of like logo?
So, my manager and buddy Mark Franzen did that. And it just came from, again, like me and Andy are in a fantasy basketball league together. And it's called NBA Jam because it consists of a lot of guys in the jam band scene who also sometimes Andy's buddy Dolov, who's in our league too. When he goes on Andy's show and he does like the sports thing, he'll like mention our league and talk shit. Dolov actually won the league this year.
Isn't he a Utah fan?
He's a fucking Utah. He's the only Jazz fan I've ever met in my life. I hung out with Dolov. He came to Philadelphia last summer, and we got some food, and he was wearing his Pistol Pete jersey. So yeah, it's like he's well versed in the game, But yeah, he's an actual Utah Jazz fan. And he won our league this year. He had a great team. And he just got married. So shout out to Dolov, man. He's a good guy.
So when's the draft for this year's?
We usually do it like 2 weeks before or something.
Okay.
The first game of the season is October 22nd. So the draft will most likely be like that first week of October. And now from watching the Olympics and also like, I do a good amount of scouting. Watching preseason stuff, and I got NBA TV. I'm locked in. I love this shit, man.
I love our about Isaiah McCain. What do you think of his prospects?
I'm excited about him, man. I think that he's got the kind of attitude and spirit that reminded me of when Maxey first came to the team too. Like, I think we're going to see a lot of exciting stuff in the backcourt this season, bro. I'm pumped, and I think McCain having a guy like Maxey to give him that boost of confidence. I'm pumped. I think we're going to see McCain end up being a starter, honestly.
Yeah. There is an opportunity there for him, I think, definitely.
My theory is always on cats that come out of programs like Kentucky and Duke and
Kansas,
North Carolina and UConn and Kansas. These guys have played on huge stages. They know what the big lights feel like.
Right.
That's why I saw the red lights with fucking Ben Simmons right away, man. That motherfucker never even played in an NCAA tournament. He played in the NIT with LSU, and he was baby fed everything he ever did. You know, if I'm looking at a guy, I got to be looking at a guy who's, really competed on those big stages, and all these cats have. And that's why you see with Maxi too. Say whatever you want about John Calipari, and I think he's a dick, but that guy's resume is incredible
Yeah.
for who he's produced just in the last fucking 20 years coming in the NBA. And he said it when the Sixers drafted Maxi 20th, whatever it was. He said he was like, that's steal of the draft.
Thank you, Mike Muscala.
Thank you. Because man, I mean it, man. I love this guy. Contagious energy, like it's just $1,000,000 smile. It's a great guy to be like a vocal point represent in our city right now in basketball. Getting kids excited. I will be purchasing a Maxi jersey before the season.
Well, I think it would be cool, man. Like when they're playing the NBA Finals this year, man, the band's playing like the pregame, right?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, and that's something that I would be thrilled to do. But have you heard of my friend Snack Time by chance from Philadelphia?
No.
You will, I'm sure soon. But check out Snack Time. One word, Snack Time. Very similar to the Operators, but even more brass driven. Like they're like almost like I would compare them to like a Lettuce or a Soul Rebels, and just great. They've been on tour with Portugal the Man the last year. They just played Red Rocks this past summer. Amazing. But they actually do a lot of the Sixers halftime stuff, and they do a lot of the Sixers stuff. So they've got that on lock, and I respect that. But I would love to do anything with any of the Philadelphia sports teams. And I think if I keep going along doing what I'm doing, I will. One of the biggest highlights for me was playing a fundraiser that we did with Jason Kelsey at Ardmore Music Hall, and getting to meet Jason and
Yeah, I
the
remember
whole
that
thing.
being announced. Okay, yeah, cool.
He came up to me and told me he was, and I never talk about this, but like it made my fucking life. But he came up to me after we performed. And he's like, "Dude, you're like a fucking modern James Brown up there." And I was blown. I was like, first of all, like that's a fucking James Brown is
Right.
all bowed down, but just meant a lot coming from a guy like Jason Kelsey. Say that to me, man. It's awesome. He's very nice, very down to earth guy. Let everybody like try on his Super Bowl ring, dude. And he brought the Mummers hat that he wore for his famous speech, and he let some of the guys. Eli's got a hilarious picture of him wearing the fucking hat. It's great. So yeah, we were all geeking out. Got a great photo with him. But yeah, just shit like that, man. And I still haven't met. I hope to meet like Bryce or one of the Phillies dudes or Maxie. Eli actually told me a great story once that he went to his vet in South Philly, and he walked in and Joel was sitting there. And he was the biggest human being that he's ever seen in person in his life, which is massive. And they share the same vet, which is cool. You never know who you run into, man.
I wonder what kind of dog Joel has.
I forget what Eli said.
Huh.
But there was a period of time too when Joel was going around and showing up at random basketball courts in Philly and playing with some guys. He was doing it around South Philly for a little bit, but now he's too big of a star. He's like, and I'm actually really happy he got a gold medal. I'm happy that he has that like under his belt now, because I mean it, dude. Like, I want to see them win a world championship. I do, but I have a hard time believing that we might see it during the full JoJo era. My hot take still was maybe we should have tried exercising the field a little bit to see what was out there for JoJo. I want to backtrack all this later and be like, wow, it all worked out.
I would have agreed with you, like the whole dominant center not being able to win, but like seeing Jokic do it, like I think in this league, I think you can still do it. Like I think if he stays healthy, that's all it is. Like if his health is, he's gonna be dominant. It's just he's never been healthy. And I think hopefully with this team now, like he doesn't have to play 38 minutes. He doesn't have to, score 35 points a game. Like, I would love to
Good
see him
point.
at like 23 points a game and, 28 minutes a game. Like that would be ideal. You're not taxing his body throughout the year and you can probably still win 50 games.
And that's fine.
Right.
You just get that's
Yeah.
fine. I think that would be a great approach. I think there's just a thing with him too, where like I think the guy wants to play 40 plus minutes. I think he wants, he wants these things. But then what's frustrating is that like on the biggest stages, where is he? Like he still hasn't had that career defining playoff game yet. Where you're like, holy fuck, he just like took over. And I say this, and I watched him score 50 points against the Knicks when they played, which was his highest scoring playoff game.
Yep.
And it was, it was a great game, and like, but it's still like he still hasn't carried the team the way like a great does, man.
Yep.
And I say that respectfully because I love JoJo, man. And I think his talent is immense, but he's got to turn on like the Hakeem Olajuwon thing, and finally, like, it took Hakeem a long time until he led the fucking Rockets to the championship. But like he can. I want to have faith, bro. I want us to turn around and say, wow, fucking Paul and JoJo finally go over the hump, and fucking Tyrese Maxey, that X Factor shining star, and our bench finally led us to the promised land and got us to championships. We have been starving for it since 1980, man. It's been a long time.
Way too long. Way too long. I want to ring the bell.
I want to do. I mean, God, I think about the Stanley Cup potentially coming to the fucking Broad Street again. I think about a basketball champion. I mean, God, the city is just like. There's nothing that matters more in this city than sports. I mean, no matter like the two things that matter most in this area from growing up in my life are the Eagles and the beach. Like those things are undefeated. Like it's like no, like the Jersey Shore and the fucking Philadelphia Eagles are undefeated in this area.
And maybe
Philadelphia.
Maybe Wawa too.
I think Sheets is taking over. Is taking a lead over Wawa. I hate to admit it, man.
Really?
Wawa, and I'm a Wawa lifer, but I prefer going to Sheets these days.
Okay. Yeah, I mean we have Sheets all around here, so like
wow. I wish we had some Sheets in Philly, man. Okay. I mean, when I'm on the road and there's the option in PA of stopping at a Wawa or Sheets, these days I want to stop at Sheets, man.
Gotcha. Right.
I want to stop at Sheets.
So I want to talk about Beard Fest.
Oh, cool.
Your involvement with Beard Fest.
Yeah.
Talk about the history, talk about how you got involved, talk about the festival itself.
Started in my buddy Zach Lepresti's backyard years ago, 2013 or 2014. And it was basically like Zach wanting to throw an awesome party with a bunch of our friends and Beard Space plays and just see how it goes. And I think like 100 people or something came and everybody had a good time and whatever. And then they just decided like, well, we should actually like try to throw a festival. So it humbly started in the backyard and then it grew to them getting a festival ground, which was called Blueberry Hill. But this was 2014 or 2015. They went to go set up at Blueberry Hill and abruptly got shut down by the property owner and was like, no, actually, we're not doing this. So they had to think extremely fast, and it was Zach's mom, Jen, who knew of another spot called Paradise Lakes and knew the landowner there. And Paradise Lakes was already kind of known because Camp Jam, which is another well-known South Jersey festival, was having events there and having, festivals there and whatever. And it was like, okay, we're going to go there. And this is before I was even involved. Like, this is just me knowing the story of it. And they had to pivot very quickly and basically on the fly, like took everything from Blueberry Hill, moved it to Paradise Lakes, and it's been there ever since, man. And it's been hosted now at Paradise Lakes since 2015. It's 13 years old at this point, which is wild. And yeah, like it's been really impressive and magical to watch the fest as it's grown each year as a community. continues to blossom around it. Watching families come to it now, watching kids be like Beard Fest kids, like growing up at Beard Fest, like people that I now know who started coming like 7 years ago when they were 18, 19, who are like in their mid 20s now, who were like, I'm like this is my so much part of my life. And then like people I've met who like first saw me perform and now know me as just like maybe like someone who's like a team member alongside of them, or like just like a friendly dude in the community who they see all the time. Like it's like it's our big summer camp each year for so many of us, and the community is like, I think, the most beautiful thing about Beard Fest. I mean, it's been very impressive to see how many different artists, really like impressive artists, have played each year. I think one that will always stand out to me is probably Medeski, Martin, and Mono Neon, which I think in many ways kind of like ended up putting Beard Fest like even more on the map. Like it took us to like a level of notoriety that we hadn't gotten in a while, from at least like we started like getting picked up by like different press like Live for Live Music and Relics and Jam Bass because of booking that, because people were also just like, whoa, this has never happened before, and that made that very, very unique and cool. But I could go down the list. I mean, we could like sit here and look at every lineup from the past however many years, and it's like, whoa, like all these people played Beard Fest. Like I could go on and on and on, but we had Mono Neon back this year, and he just did his solo stuff. It was so awesome. His solo records are so fucking cool too, and just love his artistry, man. He's such a fucking weird, cool fucking dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've played it now several times, both with Swift Technique and the Operators. I've sat in with Beard Space a bunch of times. Matt Butler was supposed to come and conduct Beard Space this year, and we were supposed to do an Everyone Orchestra where he was going to conduct Beard Space. He ended up getting sick, and I ended up conducting Beard Space in his place, which was fucking awesome. It was one of the coolest things we've ever done. And doing that in front of like a crowd of like 1,000+ people, it's also just like, whoa. Talk about strapping in, man, and just fucking going for it. And it was great. It ended up being one of the coolest musical experiences I think all of us felt like we collectively did ever. But yeah, it's around about a 2,000 person festival now, and it remains intimate for even like that size. Like I think that's the thing that I kind of each year kind of worry about, maybe, is like, man, like I hope that it just maintains being cool and everybody gets along, and there's always like little incidents here and there, but like nothing major, and there's just such an overwhelming amount of joy and love and happiness that comes from it. There's kind of like this hangover from it that you feel when you go to Beard Fest too. You're like, it can go both ways. You can like, if you can just like carry over and like feel like, wow, I'm taking that spirit with me, or you can get like, I've had people tell me they get really sad when Beard Fest is over. This is kind of like our little wonderland, But then we have to remember that we have to go back to fucking this crazy wild world that we live in. But if you carry the spirit and the energy that we all feel from it, like it's like I think that's what I try to do each year, and try to bring just like to every day is like the things and feelings and stuff that I feel from the community. Like, and our beard community is very much part of the jam community, and all these cats are like, playing and working in a lot of different facets of that. And I just have like really, I think I said it on stage at Baltimore when I was there, but I just really do love our community and scene, like the fans and the people that make it what it is. I don't think there's any more passionate or loving or caring like community that there is in music. And I've been around it for a long time now, and it's just amazing, Even when people try to bust on the jam band thing, or like even Beard Fest or whatever, I'm like, just come experience it. It's like, and it's not, Beard Fest is not a jam band festival. If you look at the bill, it's very eclectic and diverse, but it's jam friendly. But it's just such a special community, man. It really is. I love it so much.
It is
And
nice too. You have such an advantage being from Philadelphia because, you know, I can't tell you how many bands that aren't from Philly that will always say Philly is their favorite place to play. Like whether it's, because of the crowd, because of the venue, but like you're right. I mean, like fans in Philadelphia, South Jersey, like even like that extend into like, like where I live.
Northeast Pennsylvania, like
Yeah, man, like
passionate.
very passionate. So it makes a lot of sense. And like I said, you're very fortunate that you're from this area that, people can gravitate towards you.
And that's why I think I'm maybe more content as a local regional musician than some other cats are in different parts of the country and don't feel maybe as fulfilled in those ways because I've, from just my experiences of playing in the tri-state area between, Philly, New York, Baltimore, DC, Boston, some of the best times of my life. And I didn't have to go very far. Where like a lot of my other road dog pals who have played places like the Red Rocks or like in California and other places, that I also would aspire to play. Yeah, I think we have a huge advantage here in that realm. Even recently to being able to go up to Harrisburg and play with Pigeons at XL Live.
Yeah.
That was my first time at XL Live, and I was just like, I was reminded of what's like a strange little corridor. Harrisburg is like, it's like a forgotten city. Forgotten, I don't know. It's hard to explain. There's like this eerie. It was like when we were up there, it was like a rainy, eerie day, and it was like, oh, is this a strip club or is this a music venue? Where are we?
Strip clubs across the street.
Yeah. Oh, the strip club's across the street.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, 99-cent wings on Mondays. We're gonna come back up here. But that was such a great show, and similar to Andy, I have such a big love and deep respect for the Pigeon guys, and I've known the Pigeon guys since playing in Swift Technique, and that's how I met them. And first did Dome Fest with Swift there, and sat in with them, and the horns would always sit in with them too and play, and that was always like a fucking thing. And then playing the TLA with them was a fucking one of my dream shows, and that was one of the coolest crowds I've ever played for. And yeah, I just like they've just been so fucking cool and like good to us. And Jeremy actually came to both the Baltimore and the Delaware show, hung out, and I really love and appreciate Jeremy a lot too. And he can relate a lot, and all those guys can, because in running Dome Fest, they have a lot of respect and love for Beard Fest. And Jeremy came and played with Star Kitchen, which is Mark Brownstein's side project at Beard Fest this past year, and that was a big deal for all of us because we've wanted Brownie and Jeremy and all those guys to experience Beard Fest for a long time, and they were so fucking positive and thought what we were doing was great, and that means a lot coming from those guys because we all look up to those guys. We all look up to those guys, and it means a lot when those guys are like just treat us like peers and friends and are so like just genuinely cool. And I consider all those guys friends now. Just a lot of love, and like the Pigeon dudes, like playing for the crowd that I got to play for at XL Live, man. That crowd was fucking revved up and ready to go. And it was just a fucking blast. And covering Jamiroquai with them was fucking killer. That was the first time I ever did Canned Heat, and now I've been doing a lot with the Operators because it's just like such a fucking awesome song.
Whatever happened to Jamiroquai?
Dude, Jamiroquai is actually still somewhat active. Okay. I saw them right before the world ended, 2018 or 2019, at Forest Hill Stadium. It came in September of that year. And, dude, amazing. I camped out for 4 or 5 hours in line to get up front. And it was worth it because I'm a huge JK fucking Jamiroquai fan. I mean, Jamiroquai, I feel like, is such a slept-on band. In so many ways, like we're talking Radiohead in My Morning Jacket with You, and Beatles and Zeppelin and Hendrix. Like Jamiroquai's up there too. So is Lettuce, believe it or not. Lettuce is a big band for me as well. I'm like, I have followed and studied those guys for a long time and consider them like torchbearers for a lot of the music that I love, but also like putting their own blend and spin on it that makes them uniquely them, which is a lot of love for hip hop and soul music of this time. You know, Lettuce is like, one of my very favorites as well.
Yeah. So have you gotten to spend a lot of time in New Orleans?
No, no, but I from everything I know about New Orleans and the players that I have played with from New Orleans, which has been a lot, like the Big Sams of the world and guys from Galactic and Bonorama recently, and the Soul Rebels, and all the musicians I've ever met from New Orleans have been some of the most humble and cool musicians, like George Porter Jr. He's always just such a treat to hang out with, and one of my favorite guys that we worked with at Ardmore all the time, like just treasure trove, and a guy that is like so sacred to music history, in my opinion. Like the meters are sacred music. I can keep going. It's like, but I have not spent a lot of time in New Orleans. Playing Jazz Fest and just playing music in New Orleans is a big must for me. There's still a lot of traveling I need to do. There's still a lot of things I need to do.
Yeah. I got, so because we go to South by every year, we got to meet some bands that were from Lafayette, Louisiana a couple of years ago. And so I went down. So after meeting with them, they told me that in Lafayette, they do this festival called Festival International, which is the last weekend in April. So it always coincides with Jazz Fest in New Orleans. And a lot of the bands that play Jazz Fest also play this Festival International. And it's a street festival. It's awesome. Like, so we went this past year and then 2 years ago, but then we'll always spend like a night or two in New Orleans as well. So like, I mean, it's that city, the people, I mean, the resiliency of those people, like,
Totally.
I mean, it's amazing. Like, there's like Austin is probably my favorite city, and New Orleans is probably right up there. Like, it's just like you just feel something when you walk through walk down those streets. It's just something else. The food's amazing, you know, definitely recommend it, man.
There seems to be just like a general humbleness and beautiful joy amongst people that have lived in such a place of poverty too.
Yeah.
Especially post Katrina.
Yeah.
Been fucking through hell, but still maintains this incredible joy.
Yeah. And the music allows that to happen. Yeah.
There's a saying that like all music comes from New Orleans. All music was originated in New Orleans. And I also love like the whole gothic, and just kind of like the vibe of it, the voodoo vibe. It's like my soul has always been drawn to that, and also just the music. As soon as I started really diving in and listening to music from artists from New Orleans or inspired from New Orleans, like that's kind of when I started to really feel like I was clicking with music that felt very like part of my soul and part of like music that speaks to me on a very deep level. And so much of the rock music I love and just music in general is influenced by Black music.
Well, it was cool. It was cool too because we saw Andy played last year at Republic, and Anders Osborne played with him.
That's a cool fucking lineup. Anders is badass.
He is badass, but I will say he's getting to that point now where I think he's lost it a little bit. I don't know if it's age or just like health or whatever, but like he definitely was not like it at the top of his game when we saw him last year.
He's lived hard, man. He's lived hard, and sometimes I wonder if maybe he went back to a little bit of it. But yeah, he's lived hard, man. He has lived that life.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. So let's talk about Chelsea. I want to talk about your relationship with her and how that all came about. Did you know her before Swift Technique, or like how did that all?
No, we met strictly through playing with the band.
Okay.
And it was not always fucking kosher, man. Like Swift Technique deserves its own behind the music. I wish there was like a classic VH1 because it is just full of drama and just behind the scenes crap and different people coming in and out, and everything, and then a lot of huge highs, a lot of crushing lows, all of it, man. Like Swift has seen all the facets, but without going too much into the behind the music details, there was a period of time where Chelsea wasn't in the band, and they were looking for a replacement singer, and I was in between, basically my disbanding the band that I was working on for a long time at that point, and starting like my solo career. I was determined at that point to release solo music, which I later did and would become, me and the Operators and all that crap. But they kind of were like aware of me. Some of the guys in the band had been seeing me play with the other band I was in. I had opened for Swift Tech a couple of times. They were actually like one of my top favorite bands in Philly because they to me were like the Philly Lettuce. Like they were like, at one point, because Chelsea wasn't in the band, they were just instrumental, and they were just cool as shit, and they were fun, and they were tight, and they were like at one point like the Philly band that a lot of people like were looking at to really break and become, more of a major touring band. So I came into the fold because Chelsea wasn't around, and started singing with them, and instantly like clicked, and was like started playing with them. We started like playing shows mainly in like up and down the East Coast kind of thing. And then Chelsea decided she wanted to come back. And everybody's like, great, all right, let's do it. We got another singer now too. His name's Nick, and she's like, what do you mean? What do you mean other singer? Like, I'm coming back. Like, we don't need another singer. It was just like, ooh. And they were like, well, we're gonna have two singers, and it was kind of like this unspoken thing. And I like they never told me this until like later. But like there was tension. I didn't understand it, but then I kind of picked up on it. I was like, yeah, she definitely doesn't want me in the band. But it was because of a lot of crappy miscommunication, and a lot of that came from our band leader, who I will just not mention, but everybody who I knows the band, knows who I'm speaking of. Just decided to like never really like address it and just let it be. And then we turned into a two-singer band because of that elephant in the room, which then propelled us to new levels as a band. Because then, like, kind of like we started getting like, a lot of comparisons to Turquoise around that time, because of the dynamic we had and the style of music, and also we started playing like bigger festival slots, and we were on the road a good amount, playing like up and down like the eastern part of the country. And before I even joined the band, they had already gone out west and come back. So like Swift had already established themselves as a road touring band. But then once me and Chelsea really started to get going, I mean, that's when the band really started to take off. That's when the band really started to like hit its stride, and playing Camp Bisco, playing Dome Fest, playing Susquehanna Breakdown. We got a cameo thing in Orange is the New Black from a casting director buddy of mine, which is probably the coolest thing I've ever done besides working hospitality for the Rolling Stones. But that's another story.
What season? What season was the episode in?
I believe it's season 5, and it's the last episode. It's the season finale, and we're a flashback scene, and they think they're going to see the Roots play a club in Brooklyn. But it's really the Roots with a Z, and it's an all-white Roots cover band. And I come out on stage, and I'm like, "Good evening, New York. We are the Roots." And the cats are like, "Who the fuck are these fucking white boys with this Roots cover band?" And the one guy's like, "Oh no, this is good." And he goes out. So that's my 15 seconds, and then I start rapping the seed. So I believe it or not, I still get a mechanical royalty from that. Still get a funny fucking royalty check each year from SAG that I get a kick out of. Which, dude, during the pandemic was fucking crazy. Like that fucking between that fucking the check they gave us from the government and fucking the stimulus and my fucking royalty check from SAG from everybody sitting at home watching and streaming. I was like, fuck. And it also hit me to be like, what are actors actually making? Because I had 15 seconds, man, like, max. But because I just had that line, And because I had a little bit of a mechanical royalty from singing part of the song, which was also on the Orange is the New Black soundtrack, which is cool. Yeah, it afforded me more money than I could have ever imagined. And it definitely got me over a hump. I was able to pay off my rent for my house for a full year because of that. And that's when I started thinking, I'm like, dude, maybe I should just go into acting. What am I doing? Like, maybe. But then also realizing that, like, no different going on auditions than it is booking gigs. Like, it's just as tough, and honestly, even more unforgiving and tough. I mean, you have to be used to know even more as a beginning actor, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just that little experience right there was is enough of my 15 seconds. I still get friends who like will go down the rabbit hole for the first time and watch it and be like, "Was that you?" Like, yeah,
That's hilarious.
pretty cool, right?
Yeah,
Again, just another thing. I'm just like, I got to do something really fucking cool. You know, be on a fucking major TV show from playing music, man.
Yeah, that's really cool, and a great show too. Like it could have been a shitty show too.
Well, I'll never forget it too because my buddy was being very vague about it. He was just like, "Look, there's a show I'm working on Netflix, and I think your band would be perfect for this episode I'm working on. Can you like send me a few things?" And I'm like, "Okay." And he didn't want to get my hopes up. That's what he told me later. He's like, "I didn't, it's like part of like you don't want to like get anybody's hopes up because if one of the directors doesn't want it, doesn't want it." So when I actually went back to the band and told them it was Orange is the New Black, nobody believed me. Everybody was like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dude?" I'm like, "We're gonna be Orange is the New Black." And then before we knew it, we were in a studio recording the Roots song for the soundtrack, and then we were in New York very early on like a Tuesday afternoon in Brooklyn. We filmed the scene at Baby's All Right, which is a great indie rock club in Brooklyn. We filmed the scene there, and a ton of extras. And I met like, what's her face? I forget her name in real life, but Donna, who was on that '70s show, who's also she was on set, and I couldn't help it. I went up to her and was just like, huge fan, just like wanted to say hi. She was like, "You guys are great." I was like, "This is so cool. This is like." I was like, I want to. I couldn't even just that day too because I had to do a couple of different takes of saying Roots and how I walked out, and I was loving it. And the directors and the people that we worked with were like, "You guys were great. You guys like, have you guys done this before?" And I was like, "Well, I've been on stage in my high school theater. Can I add this to my resume?" And definitely is on my resume. So just so cool, and I think you can tell from me being on stage, I certainly love to perform. I love it. It's like the best. No better feeling other than love than performing live music.
I guess the question is then, because I've asked this from other lead singers, like how do you like when you get that much adoration from a crowd and you have that high that you talk about when you are in the moment, how do you come off of that? Like, and like if you're on tour for 3 weeks, like how do you adjust to like, having that adoration every night in front of you and then going back to like, being by yourself in your house, like,
being behind the bar serving a guy who doesn't know who the fuck I am or doesn't give a fuck either who the fuck I am, right? And you just,
how do you do that? Yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to a lot of like your integrity or you're like who you really are as a person. Like I think if you're performing for the right reasons, right, which is like to express, to feel like for the love of it, for all the things, then maybe I think for me, it's been easy to turn it on and off. And some people are actually surprised again when they meet me sometimes in real life and they're like, "Wow, man, you're like really chill and like down to earth." And like I guess they just expect me to be like, I'm just like, got it. I think the really good performers and people that are just do this for a living know how to turn it on and off. Because you have to have ego to perform on stage. There's not that's the time to have ego. Because there's no other, if you're not performing with conviction and you're not up there owning it, then the crowd's not gonna be there with you.
Right.
The crowd wants to also through you feel that. And then the best shows are the game of catch, right? When I'm putting it out there to the crowd's giving it right back, and I'm going right like that's the best shit. And a guy like Andy definitely knows that because Andy's a master of that.
Yeah.
And watching guys like Andy, and then watching like my favorites like Mick and David Bowie and Iggy Pop, like a lot of like the my early like influences of frontman and like performers were like a lot of like the punk rock guys because their energy was just like unbridled, and Andy comes from that place too. I mean, like I think Andy was like first in like pop punk bands and stuff growing up. And I just always was like very into that energy, which is another reason I like loved early My Morning Jacket because they were playing like these beautiful tunes, too. But then like when it came time to rock, it's like fuck, it's like nothing better, man.
Yeah.
So that's
golden
it,
with my guitar, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But that's what like fucks you. And like, even like going to see Neil Young recently, I was reminded of that because Neil fucking rocks. But then he could take you to such a goddamn delicate, beautiful fucking place. And I think I'm still learning that as a performer too. And like that's like a thing with sets, right? Like there's with an Andy Frasco set and playing in front of that crowd, I want to come out and I want to fucking put the gas, immediately. But if maybe if I'm opening for My Morning Jacket, I'm gonna take that point in the set, to bring it down to show you like that, like I've got that part of me in my catalog too. I don't always get to do it with all my shows because I do often feel, especially as an opener, that you have to come out and like kick ass and get it going. But if I'm playing a show, like I really believe in the pacing of a show. Yeah. You can't blow your load all at once. You got to know when to like also bring the crowd down a little bit with you and let them feel a little bit. Those are my favorite moments of the show when I'm like being like rocking, but then you take me down and you make me fucking want to cry.
Yeah. Pearl Jam does a great job with that. Like with
Pearl Jam does a great job. Radiohead does a great job with it. I mean, so many great live bands understand the arc of a show, and just know how to like fucking beautifully, like it's like a beautiful hill or like a like a climb to the top. But then there's guys like Andy Frasco who just all gas. And there's a lot of other like just like fucking like punk rock bands I love who are like fuck your fucking soft fucking song. I'm fucking going for blood, baby. Yeah. But I'm as a performer nowadays, like in playing longer shows, I love pacing a good set.
A lead singer that growing up that really kind of impacted me that I for some reason I feel like in the last like since the pandemic, you just really don't hear like pop culture or anybody talking about them. But dude, Jim Morrison, man. Like Jim Morrison was the front man.
I've gotten a fair share of Jim comparisons too, which kind of go both ways for me because I love the Doors. I think the Doors and Jim Morrison, as time has gone on and the kind of like culture we're in today, that he gets looked at as a bit of like misogynistic, almost like a little too much. He definitely went a little over, and there's some stories like amongst rock folklore that he was a bit of a buffoon at times. I mean, a lot of that had to do with his drinking. So if you read Nobody Gets Out of Here Alive, which is a great book, one of the great rock books, Jim was like no fool. He was very smart, like borderline Rhodes Scholar, dude, and very well read. So yeah, like I do hear what you're saying a lot, and I also think that sometimes the Doors music is misunderstood, or some people can't get like past like Ray Manzarek's organ, and don't realize how unique their music is. Like to this day, no one sounds like the Doors ever. I don't think anyone will ever sound like the Doors again. And he's certainly, I think, at times misunderstood because of the over the top kind of buffoon stuff that gets thrown out there a lot more that they can't fully comprehend a song like When the Music's Over,
Mhm.
or the cinematicness of a song like The End.
Right.
You know,
When
like,
people say like, "Oh, there'll never be another Stairway to Heaven," I'm like, and there also never will be another The End. Like, listen to that song. Like,
seriously,
Mother, I'm gonna kill you. Like 13 minutes of like that song is insane, but it's so beautiful. It's
it is, and it's so
uh,
psychedelic. I
yeah,
also think like all the guys in the Doors were very unique players. Like Robbie Krieger was always a favorite guitar player of mine.
absolutely.
And I learned a lot of Doors songs on guitar because you could, and they
Mhm.
were fun riffs to play. Like learning like "Love Me Two Times" and "Roadhouse Blues," and like again, I also really dug that I could tell that they were into blues music,
Yeah.
like "Backdoor Man" and fucking all that
5 to 1,
stuff.
dude. Oh my
Five
God,
to
forget
one.
it.
We in one of my old bands, we used to cover "L.A. Woman" a lot.
Yeah,
Which, come on, who doesn't fucking love "L.A. Woman"?
yeah.
And that song is like a prog song. Like it's like there's so many cool fucking sections in the way it
Ha-
builds.
have you ever covered the Doors with the Operators?
No, but now you got me thinking because we
Dude,
could
you
crush.
totally should.
I mean, we could like even something like "Touch Me" would be like with the horns. I think
Oh
would be like
man.
really fun for people.
Yes. And like totally out of left field too. Like you could really that could wow a crowd, man.
I think it's a great suggestion actually, man, and I will take you up on that
Yeah.
because I'm always looking to sprinkle in other fun covers because I do like doing covers. It's something about like playing in like kind of like the jam scene that I've always enjoyed is that people like definitely get a kick when you show your influences, I think, through the songs you cover, right? Or the songs you like.
Yeah.
So I
I mean,
think
My
people
Morning
still.
Jacket doing Rocket Man. I mean, good Lord.
Oh, dude, I've seen him do that. I've seen them do a bunch of covers. Years ago, I went and saw them at Terminal 5 when they did that run where they played all their albums,
Yeah.
which was very, very special. And they did a bunch of really, really fun covers for all those shows. I saw them like cover White Rabbit. I saw them cover like a quick one while she's away and Hit It and Quit It and like what the fuck.
Wow.
Amazing. I mean, their taste in music is all over the place too. But one that really hit me like a fucking million bricks is they covered George Harrison's "Isn't It a Pity,"
Yes.
which is a huge song for me. That
Yes.
album's huge for me. Which is also a huge album for Jim. Jim has like said many times that All Things Must Pass. It's a very important album to him. Um, and "Isn't It a Pity" is one of those songs like that. I'm like, yo, that's this might be this like one of the songs. If I was ever like anybody was ever asked me like, what's the song that you think like kind of like represents life or what living is to you in reality? It's "Isn't It a Pity," man. That song is like nails it on the head of humanity.
Yeah.
George Harrison was like just so like connected at that point with what was going on in his world and outside of it, and saw all these things like so far down the road. "Isn't it a Pity" is like it's even more relevant now.
The most underrated
We're so
Beatle.
lost. We're so lost in the technological world, man, and the this fucking crazy social political fucking nonsense that we all have to go through. Yeah,
Thank God the
I
music.
feel that song. We had
Thank God we had the music.
thank God we had the music, and thank God we can communicate and talk about it. But yeah, God, that Jim again, just like he takes me to those places, man, every time.
Are you doing the man show with Nathaniel Rateliff?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Going to
We'll have to
that.
connect then because I think we're going to that too.
Let's definitely connect for that.
Yes.
I'm eager and hopeful that Ween will be playing the night before, but after seeing them cancel this recent West Coast swing, I'm just hoping that everybody's okay
Yeah.
and in good spirits and health. But it doesn't seem like things are going as good there as you would hope, and hope
Yeah.
everybody just takes care of themselves.
And Kings of Leon 3 days before that.
I gotta tell you, I'm off the Kings of Leon train.
Oh, the new album is fantastic, dude. If you haven't listened to it,
Someone else was telling me this the other day, and I was
it's
like,
so good.
all right.
Yeah.
And again, I'm guilty of being like Man, I remember when Kings of Leon were first coming out. They had the chance to be the greatest rock and roll band in the world. And at one point, they were like, I mean, when Sex on Fire first came out, that album, that was just like, whoa, these guys have hit the stride, man.
Yeah.
I remember the
They
first time I heard
fucking
Sex on Fire, I was in the car driving, and I was like, whoa, this song is going to be
yeah.
huge. You just knew it.
I think after you listen to Mustang off this new album, you'll get that same kind of feeling. You'll be like, "Oh yeah, this is what I remember." Like this.
It's good rock, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those guys have been through a lot too. Those
They
guys
sure have.
guys got thrown through the fame machine hard, you
Yeah.
know. Had to come out the other side.
Yeah, I hope they don't Coldplay it. Like stick with guitars, guys. Like that's what I've never understood about Coldplay, man. Like I love Coldplay, but god damn it, guys. Like Johnny Chamberlain is a fucking awesome guitarist and you don't let him play guitar.
No, and you know he shines on the first two albums,
Oh my God, yeah.
as well as Chris Martin's piano playing. I mean,
Yes.
those first two albums are awesome. I don't care what anybody says. I still go back to those albums a lot because they're really really great songs, and they especially with Parachutes. I mean, Jesus Christ, that fucking album's it's just incredible, man.
Yeah.
That song, every single song on that album is time stamped for me because I was like, that album was big for me during my parents' divorce. Believe it or not, when I was a kid, I used to like listen to that album a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in Radiohead and all, like I was like, man, thank God I had that music though.
Were you a fan of Travis and Star Sailor?
I was aware of them, and I
Okay.
thought some Travis that I listened to was really good, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it was a little too veering in more of like adult, like alternative, where I felt a little more connected to Coldplay and Radiohead. You know, maybe and that's part of like more of like the MTV kind of generation of it too as well, because they were definitely like big MTV bands.
Right. Yeah,
Yellow was
Blur and
huge.
the Verve. Yeah, like that was kind of the other.
Love Blur, man.
Yeah.
Love. I will follow whatever Damon does too, even though I think he's losing his mind a little bit. But
Yeah.
between Blur and Gorillaz, huge fan of what he does. Big time.
And the Good, the Bad, and the Queen. Don't that album is really good too, man.
Sure, you're right. You're right. My bro, that Park Life reminds me a lot of my brother, though. You know, that was like one of those albums I found in the treasure chest of CDs, and I was like, "What's this?" And then just put it on. I was like, "Wow, I like this a lot."
Yeah.
Yeah, so much good fucking music came out of that period, especially in the UK alone. I mean, I've always just thought the English, when it comes to music and art and acting, are just
Better.
far ahead of us.
Yeah.
You know, in so many aspects. And
Yeah.
I'm very influenced, I feel like, by a lot of English artists and musicians because they just get it.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Europe or England or?
Brother, I just got my passport this year.
Hell
And I
yeah.
got it because we played a wedding in Mexico, which is fucking awesome. That was one of the coolest things I've ever done too in music. But yeah, now that I have the passport, that's the plan. I have a friend that is a regular at Johnny Brenna's that I've become friendly with, and he has dual citizenship in the UK, and he goes all the time. And I was just like, all right, Scott, let's go, man. Take me like after the holidays. I want to go like post January, like. And I think that's what I'm going to do because you know I'm very drawn towards Europe, you know, and like European culture. I'm half Irish, half Italian. You know, it's like my breed. But I am like so drawn towards the England, you know, and just that part of the world. So I plan on getting there. I plan on just in general doing more traveling because the one thing I hate to say, like that I really want to do in general is just make more money. And that's one thing about bartending that's been great. I know I don't do terrible with music. I make more money playing weddings than anything else. I mean, the original gigs have certainly gotten better, and we get paid much better than we did when we were first starting off. But I make most of my dough playing weddings and bartending. I mean, It's an honest fucking living, man.
Yeah. So
And
what
I
nights
enjoy
do
it.
you have a set schedule then when you're not touring or what's
But yeah. I mean, I mainly, and it's cool because I mainly work like daytime shifts when I'm not around, and they're still great because like they're a lot more laid back than late night shifts are. But between like especially happy hour time, like I always make a really nice buck.
yeah.
Um, and it's work, man, because half the time it's just me like behind the bar, just like manning the place. Which if you get enough people in there, it can be a lot, but pays off, baby. That's how I always feel. Whenever I'm in the weeds, I'm just like, think dollars, think the dollars.
Yeah.
And again, nowadays, I feel like just to get ahead, you have to work a gig almost like you almost have to work like 3-4 jobs if you're not rich. If you want to get ahead, like if you're fine, just like you got your bills and your paycheck and you're good, then great. But like for someone that like wants to like do more and travel more, and you're looking at 3 jobs, man. But
Yeah.
bartending helps a lot, and I mean, as long as robots don't take over bartending, I think that will always be an honest to God job for humanity.
I
There
agree.
will always be work in hospitality. It's not the easiest work. There will be times that you will be more challenged than you've ever been challenged emotionally at work in your life. But you also meet the best people. You also work with some of the best people. It builds character. It's led me down roads and relationships that like I wouldn't have had otherwise, which is similar to how I feel about in music too. It's like you meet some of the best people and you form connections and relationships that help propel you to other parts of your career. And you never know who you're going to meet in hospitality too. And it's exciting, and I love it. I love it for that reason. And so much of life, as you know, man, is who you know. And between working in the bar and being a musician, it's been good to know the people that I know.
Yeah. So have you had any celebrities or musicians come into Johnny Brenda's when you were working?
Recently, Bam Margera showed up, which was first concerning. It's like, you on
I know
probation?
you.
Are you are you still? You're not drinking, right? And he wasn't. He just came in and had some iced tea and a burger, and he was on his way. I just served the gals from a band called Mannequin Pussy the other night. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with Mannequin Pussy?
Yep. I've heard of
Okay,
them.
Mannequin Pussy, I think, put out maybe the best rock record of this year. I know that you like the Kings of Leon record that just came out, but I want you to check out. My homework for you is to check out the Mannequin Pussy record. I Got Heaven.
I got her. I
Just
got you.
came out this spring. It is such a great fucking rock record, man.
Where are they from?
Philadelphia.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
They just had they had their first major international tour, sold out most of the tour, and are on the cusp of just like continuing to grow and break new ground. And it's very exciting to see, people in Rolling Stone. But yeah, I got to tell them because I don't like to fanboy out too much. I like to give people their space, especially when they're like, you know, rock stars, and people tell them all the time how much you love them. But I was cool. I took their orders, and then when I brought them their dinner, I just said, I just want to tell you guys, I don't like to do this often, but I just want to let you guys know how awesome I think you guys are, and congrats on all your success, and love to see it. And they both genuinely appreciated it, which is what you always try to do. Like, if anybody else ever comes like that in the bar, like, I think most times they just want to be treated as guests and not have the kind of adulation and attention. But if you can find a way to slip it in respectfully and show that, like, it's appreciated. And I used to do that all the time at Ardmore too. And no matter who I was working with, and I got to work with a lot of my heroes or people that were famous. And it was always cool to see that most of them were like human about it and weren't just like, yeah, you get that. You get a few of those, but most people were very cool.
So
Yeah.
I got a question for you. I want to know your favorite venue to play. And then I also want to know a story about either a owner or a promoter or some awful concert experience that you had as a band. You don't have to name the venue, but just tell me the story behind it.
I might have to think about that for a second.
Okay. Well, give me the best, the best venue
Oh,
so I can
okay.
think about it.
Okay. Well, my favorite venue to play, I would be remiss. It's a tie because I have so much love and fond memories of now playing both Ardmore and Johnny Brandes.
Okay.
It's just like feel very fortunate and grateful that I've gotten to play two legendary stages consistently, and still am playing them. So yeah, absolutely, those spots. First and foremost, and then God, a concert experience that left me feeling like that.
Where a promoter didn't pay you, or a bit, a venue didn't pay you, or like you had a crowd that, you know, something
Dang it.
happened, or
Let's think about this worst concert experience. It's probably if I'm just I'll go on with it's probably a Swift Technique experience. Sweet. Because with Swift it was the most gigs I had with the band at that point, especially on the road, and we just had gigs of all shapes and sizes that were sometimes I would go in to be like, why are we playing Oswego, New York right now? Okay, like what are we doing in Oswego, New York, playing a fucking bar? And then it would turn out to be like the best gig we ever played. I would have those moments. I would have more of those moments, honestly, than I would have being like we ever got really dicked over. I'm sitting here really thinking about it. I can honestly say like maybe we had bad shows that maybe come to mind. That we like just like it was like maybe the vibe was off or something, but never anything that I could sit here and just be like the worst. And maybe that's a
you're
good
lucky.
thing.
Yeah, you're lucky because it's funny because anytime I ask that question to other bands, they're always like, "Oh yeah, I got a story for you," or "Oh, I can tell you 3 or 4 stories." So that's
Maybe honestly, I'm sitting here like nothing really like stands out. Like maybe there's been like times where like again like promoter was maybe a little snippy or a band like just kind of sucked or like I don't know like but nothing honestly that really stands out. And
okay.
again, maybe that has to do with maybe
Knowing the
not
business.
playing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But nothing stands out. I mean, I would love to name with some bands that were just like our artists that were dickheads, but leave it at that. But nothing that stands out as like a horror story. We never got. I've never been stiffed. Never had like hunt anybody down. I never had like an audience member like throw anything at me or not yet. I'd say all this and knock on wood and like now someone's gonna fucking come after me.
Well, it's funny. I don't. Are you familiar with the band The Dip?
Yeah,
So
Dip's great.
so we saw them at Tellus last Thursday, and they played for a headlining set for a sold out show. They played a little over an hour, which was a little surprising. And the lead singer, like the entire time, like I can't say that I've had this happen too much, and I see probably 100 concerts a year. He totally didn't seem like he wanted to be there.
Mm,
And like even after the show, like, because I was waiting to talk to them and like I was talking to the other band members and they were all very like, very,
nice.
cordial and encouraging. And like I noticed him talking to other fans and it was just like he wanted to be somewhere else. Like it was very, very odd.
Mm. Again, it's like as being on the other side of that sometimes, and who knows what so
Sure.
and so is going through that day or what the road's been like. There's so many factors, and so, again, it's so hard to be on consistently all the time. Not only just from a performance standpoint, but then like the post performance thing. And when you're a band that's still developing, and you're someone that's like still trying to grow and meet fans and be like it can be very very hard, especially for singers. And I've had to learn how to do this and navigate it. But like when you're on the road, you as a singer, you have to be the most disciplined person in the band, probably besides the drummer, because you're the biggest athlete in the band in terms of you have to go out and exert a lot. You have to save your voice. You have to like maintain your energy. You have to maintain it. You have to maintain. You have to be consistent. Because if you lose your voice, what are you gonna do? And I've had that happen on the road, and it sucks. I haven't completely lost my voice, but have been on the verge of it, and it's not a fun feeling. No. And then you can get on yourself a lot as a vocalist when that happens. So maybe he could have been going through like the thing where like or a long run of shows and starting to feel the fatigue of it, and you just want to go and be away from people.
Yeah,
and that is tough because like then that's when you need your other band members to like step up, and that can be a lot to ask because you're the front person. So you're like especially again if you're still developing and you want to be at the merch table and you want to like actually engage, like it's taxing, man.
I think to your point, like about how Andy and that band kind of has maintained throughout all these years of playing. Like I think you're right. I think it's because, or one of the reasons is because the other band members really do pick him up, or vice versa. So like,
no doubt. I mean, Sean has like been amazing in that regard, for Andy, and like he's like the second guy I think everybody kind of looks to as like the leader of the band in some ways. But then like Ernie and drummer's name is escaping me as well. Fucking man,
no.
He might be and I say this, he might be the best musician in the band because he's a monster drummer. He plays the fuck out of guitar, and when he sings, man, when is he coming out with a record?
He's got some soul in him, man.
He's got major soul, and I mean it. Like one of the reasons why that band doesn't completely go off the rails is because he's a very good drummer and keeps them from going completely punk rock. Because if they had any other drummer, man, that Andy Frasco would be
Slayer and Rage Against the Machine all night,
big time, dude. But with that said, because I was saying earlier how like they're very like all gas at times. Like I have noticed it at that Baltimore show when he's playing newer music. He is going for more of that tender kind of songwriting spot that I know he loves, and they've all like started really singing together really well. I've noticed that as well. They've definitely been working on that, and I think that's great. And I think Andy needs that too because again, how can our boy go out there every night and still maintain that level of debauchery? All right, we got to slow down the set a little bit, man. But it's also like again, I commend him because now when you go to an Andy Frasco show, that's what you expect. People want the crowd surf, they want the Mazel Tov, they want all this shit, and like Andy just like wants to be more like Dr. Dogg. He wants to like get up there and just like play his songs and sing, and like doesn't want to have to do that all the time. And I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I don't blame him, man.
Yeah, like a song like Iowa Moon, you would never expect to come out of his like mouth or out of their repertoire.
What a great
song. Yeah.
What a great song. And that's what I mean. Andy loves songwriting. Like I feel like if you talk to him about music, he expresses that like big time. He's like just very into songwriting and good songs. And he has good songs, man. The guy's got 8 albums now or something. It's like fucking awesome. And they've been a band for a long time. They have paid their dues, and that's something that, again, I don't know in this day and age if like you're going to see more Andy Frascos in the UN because it's just so hard now. It's so hard to do that now for 12 years.
250 shows a year. I mean, it's
250 shows a year and
unbelievable.
You have to
be built. Jameson.
A lot of Jameson, a lot of other substances.
Yeah, I first saw them at South by in 2013, and I got to talk to Andy after the show, and like, we've kind of stayed in contact since. Like, I think Sean and I probably are closest of the band, but like, every time, he always will talk to me, and like, I think at some point we're gonna get him on the podcast too. So, be a great conversation.
Andy's a good man.
Yeah.
I mean that. It's not easy to do what he does
Yeah. Well, like
and
you
wear
said
all
earlier
those
too, like
hats.
when you met him at Asbury Park, like and how he was interacting with fans and like it was just like there's a testament to that that not everybody can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to ask myself those questions too. Like when I've thought to myself, like if I was more on a tier of like where Andy's at this moment, I don't know if I would necessarily always like it. I think I would really need more space. I think I would feel like that guy from the Dip at times.
Hmm.
I think Tom York went through that too on another level of fame. I mean, he struggled with that during the OK Computer era big time. I think that there's a good documentary. I forget what it's called that documents that time. And
Meeting people is easy.
yes,
Yeah.
like you see his turmoil on display.
Mm.
There's one great scene where he like melts down like completely.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought it was interesting when he was talking about how how to disappear completely was formed, and it was from Michael Stipe telling him his mantra of when he would get overwhelmed, and he would say, "I'm not here. This isn't happening." I was like, "What the fuck?" I love it, man. I love that
Yeah.
shit.
It's funny. Athens, Georgia is really kind of having a resurgence of like rock music and like bands that are down
About
there.
time. That's how
Dude,
that town was built on.
yeah, seriously. Like
It's
I
like,
would love to go to the 40 Watt Club. I hear that venue is just iconic. Have you got to
and
play there?
they haven't got to play there, but
Okay.
also know the history just from people talking
Yeah.
about it. That town's built on music and rock music. Like in many ways, Athens should be like Austin, or like one of those spots that's
Yeah.
like. But it's cool that it's like it's still just like a classic American town in many ways. And
Mhm.
think about just REM and the B-52s and like how polar opposites those bands are in ways, but how similar they are in ways
And
too.
widespread panic. I mean, really, like
Yeah,
crazy.
widespread motherfucking panic, brother. Don't forget about widespread motherfucking panic.
Yeah, their fans really
I
like
don't I
them.
don't I don't hate on widespread, man. I fucking a guy like what's the singer's name again? John, what is it?
Uh, we're
But just
terrible with names
okay,
tonight.
I love a guy that's just as guttural and like just has a voice like that
Yes.
that is successful. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that artists like that have made it because it is hard, bro. They just opened up for the Stones. They played in Atlanta, which is cool. Why are the Stones giving the nod to widespread? Like that's cool.
It is
That's
cool.
hilarious and cool. Wishing Jimmy Herring a speedy recovery. So it's sad to hear the news about him.
Yeah.
That's tough shit, man.
Yeah, a lot of people have died and have been, yeah,
A lot
either,
of health stuff, man.
yeah,
A lot of people passing. A lot of people deciding to hang it up to focus on health, and it's just the realities. It's like it's a tough life, man. I think that's the other thing I learned a lot from it, from even just my short experience in Swift of being on the road as much as we were, and then working behind the scenes and just getting to know people who are actively, on the road. Like it has its toll. And I think it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, which is like as artists or creatives, you really have to ask yourself, like, what is success? Is it touring your dick off silly and like doing that? And then when does it feel like there's a point where like you can be like, okay, I feel good about this and I can walk away
relax. Right.
or go do something else that affords me to make a living without having to put myself through that 250 days a year. Such a trade-off with it, but then a lot of the cats I've talked to also will tell you that you become addicted to it. You become addicted to that feeling. But even as you're complaining about it, your day is always set for you. You know where you're going. The crowd's going to be there. Like through even all the bullshit, there's an addictive quality to it, and that's why also you see cats like veer into the other temptations of it. You know, because it is, man. It's so easy. I mean, I had to work through it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've had to work through substance stuff, and part of that was definitely stoked by like starting to play with a band like Swift, and then you're playing with other people, and then you're just partying. And, hey man, try this. It leads to things and leads to habits. So I had to learn that too on the road pretty hard. And I think that's the other thing that just like doesn't always get talked about, but that's just the reality of it. There's a lot of idle time, and you have to be careful with that idle time because most people use the idle time to get fucked up. And that's how usually bad habits start because you're like, whoa, what else am I going to do? I guess I'll drink. I guess I'll do this. And then that's why, like, you see the cats that are really fucking, like, road warrior experts, like, they have a routine and they don't fuck with the routine and they get up every day and they, like, either run or exercise and they have their meals set. Like, I try to maintain a little bit of that. I go on, like, big walks and work out, like, as much as I can before a show. I have to like put that energy there, or else like I get triggered and tempted to like drink too much, or when I put myself in a state of mind that I know like isn't really the best for performance. Yeah. So yeah, it's like it requires a lot of discipline, man, and we're all human.
And it's interesting too because like when you're a rock band and you're in your 20s, discipline is the one thing that is probably not on the top of your list, So as important as it is, like that's the struggle,
Yeah, and then when you're in your 20s, you also want to be able to like to say that you got to do like the road things or the kind of things that you right. thought were glorified when you saw Led Zeppelin doing it, but it's Led Zeppelin and you're not Led Zeppelin. Shut the fuck up. Yeah. I learned that the hard way, like from studio experiences and road experiences, where I completely fucked my voice by like the second day because I was, over talking, partying, doing whatever, and then when it came time to work, dude, what the fuck? That's how we became more of a jam band too. So like, take a longer solo. I have no voice. Which actually kind of worked both ways. I kind of learned how to pace a set more too on the road from us being a little bit more like improvisational and having guys in the band that were not afraid to step up and play longer leads. There is a little bit of an advantage to that when you are in a more of a improvisational band. As a singer, it's definitely helpful. It's easy to lose your voice.
So music-wise, what do we have to look forward to from now until the rest of the year? Any new songs that we've got in the pipeline, or?
I'm working on new songs. That will eventually be another EP that I will release next year. But we're finishing up what will be volume 2 of another live album that I'm putting out, because I'm planning on just continuing also to release a lot of my live stuff because it's really good and the qualities came out great again. And my drummer and my good friend who has now produced and mixed most of my music now for the last 10 years, Joe Baldacci, is mixing it again. So I'm going to release that and put that out there in the world as like kind of my next release, and it came out great. It's from our Beard Fest performance this past year, which is easily my best Beard Fest performance and also just like one of the best concerts we ever had as a band. And it sounds so fucking good. So I'm very pumped to put that out there. The EP is going to be kind of a similar vibe of the last EP I put out, which is an EP called Scatterbrain, which I started veering kind of more production wise into like a lot of more like atmospheric, almost like stuff that I love with a lot of hip hop music that I'm a fan of, especially this one producer named Pete Rock, who like is my favorite hip hop producer ever. He was extremely atmospheric and uses a lot of texture, and that comes from my love of Radiohead as well. So I'm kind of veering more in that direction of like music that's hard to pigeonhole, as a songwriter. Like I don't want to get stuck as like a funk guy or a jam band guy or just trying to write cool songs and mess with sounds that I think are great. So the next EP I think will be another step in my kind of maturity in the studio and just the music that I'm really into these days. And I'm just going to continue to try to book the best gigs I can. I'm going to be playing a gig up in Syracuse in October with my friends in Sophistafunk at one of my favorite venues called Funk and Waffles that I love a lot.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to go visit. I've got a festival this Friday in South Jersey at the same campground as Beard Fest. This festival that was called Into the Pines, and it features a lot of like great local bands that I'm all friends with, and a lot of the Beard Fest community will be there as well. And then a ton of weddings, man. Then we're about to approach a big chunk of time where like I mix doing a lot of original and wedding gigs. So it's a very unique period of time for me because what I'll do is that I'll line up kind of runs where we play like a couple of original gigs, right? Like two, three original gigs, and then try to capitalize it with a wedding, because the wedding is always a great payday for everybody. And it kind of helps make sense of a run. So I try to book runs around also doing a wedding. But it can be kind of comical sometimes when you go from playing like two like original gigs and like playing for like certain like jammy crowds, and then go to like a wedding.
Like, grandma.
you just like, again, this is like the life of a working professional musician stuff that I get such a kick out of. It's cool, man. And it's good to know, like, I'm just proud that I'm able to make a living as a musician. I'm not living lavishly, but I'm paying the bills and I got a roof over my head.
So do the wedding gigs, I was gonna say, do you just do then covers then for your wedding gigs?
But what's cool is that some of the weddings we've been asked to play some of our originals because they're people that are fans of the band, which is a huge honor to me. I think it's such a fucking amazing thing to already be asked to play somebody's wedding, and I take that very seriously. But then like to be like, can you play like the one, say like the song of ours, and I'll be like, yeah, of course. And then like that has also led people to be interested in the band. Like we've got people that have seen us play at the weddings who are like, come to our original shows. That's awesome. So there's been a great trade-off with that. And again, it's afforded me to make an actual living. And I was very resistant to it at first, man. I did not want to be a wedding singer. I thought I was going to like going against all the grain of being an original musician. And the first time I actually played a wedding and saw like the joy and love and happiness, and like also realized like I was like comfortable being the MC, like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. Blah, blah, blah. I found myself in that fucking thing. So like I tell people a lot, like I'm a wedding singer. If people ask, like, I do. I'm a fucking wedding singer too, man. This guy that can get up on stage in overalls and be rocking out singing break stuff can also go and fucking sing you a wonderful tender ballad that you'll never forget for the rest of your life. It's your first dance, or Uptown Funk with all your friends and family. Like, we do all sorts of shit. It's great. I'm playing a wedding this weekend in Asbury Park after Into the Pines. This is a good example of like that kind of weekend. I'm going to go play the fest, and then I go play the wedding with my buddies who also play in Asbury Park and have their band, and it's a great weekend. And we all make some money.
Right. And you're home that night then, or you'll spend the night over in Asbury?
I'll probably come home that night because I got to work in the venue Sunday night at Johnny Branda's. So I always try to line up that way. Like, to me, it's like a good example of like a real working musician today who like is working on a local level and like how they might approach it. And I learned that approach from working at Ardmore, and like also like other guys that are living in this area that are professionals and that do well doing it. Mm-hmm. If I can make $50K a year doing what I do, I'm happy, man. And I'm getting close, like, and it's taken a lot of hard work, but like as a single guy, well, not completely single, but as a guy with no kids,
right?
Sorry for my girlfriend, Courtney. The guy with no kids and without the kind of other big responsibilities that some of my other married friends have now.
Yeah.
I'm, again, going to use that shit, though, to go to places like Europe and New Orleans and, get to experience things in life that, like, I haven't got to afford to do, but now, because of working my fucking ass off, I can do it.
Yeah.
So, all good things, man.
Have you guys thought of doing South by?
I thought about it much more when I was in my early 20s, and I
Gotcha.
thought South by was like an actual thing that we should do. But now I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that it's a need now. Especially with just how I've seen bands just without the South bys and the other things that you did back in the day to get on the radar with, labels and other bands and agents and shit. Social media has changed everything for good and worse. I mean, social media has also ruined the world, but it's allowed people to do things they would have never been able to do otherwise. And YouTube as well. I mean, Wolfpack is like the ultimate example of that in my lifetime for me. I remember first discovering Wolfpack because one of the guys in Swift Technique went on an Israel retreat with Theo Katzman and Joey Dosick, and came back and was like, I just found the greatest band in the world. We're like, what are you talking about? And it felt like we were on to like the best kept secret at that time. No one knew what we were talking about.
Right.
But then when we put it on for people, like other bands, or we used to play it in the van all the time. And then they exploded, and then they sold out fucking Madison Square Garden. That's what can be done. And that's incredible in this day and age.
Yeah.
And there's been other examples of it. And if you hustle enough and you're consistent enough with your shit on social media, you will get there.
Yeah.
I just don't have that in me, brother. I like to live. I like to be off my phone a little bit and not be fully consumed in that world. But I also realize that maybe if I did put now a little bit more time into that aspect, maybe I would be in a different place. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I think it really comes down to the songs, man. It's always
Right?
the songs, right? You can dress up whatever you want. You can dress down. You can fireworks it. It all
That's
comes
what I
down to
would
the
always.
song.
God, you're preaching. You and I are definitely kindred spirits too. Because I've always said that. I've said to many people that there are a million great musicians in the world. Because there are. There's so many talented fucking players and musicians and singers. It's insane. But there's only so many songwriters, man. There's only so many people that can actually write, and song is the most powerful thing. We've seen it. I mean, one of my favorite songwriters is Lou Reed, and most Lou Reed songs are 2 chords. Okay, and some of my other musician buddies scoff at that shit, but I tell them, I was like, you're not appreciating the song, man.
Mm-hmm.
You're not listening to the song. It's all about the song. That's something I preach and I believe in, and I'm proud of my catalog of songs, man, because I believe in writing songs, big time. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me in my life, and one of the things I'm most proud of is getting my songs on the radio. I've had more than one of my songs on the radio, and for me, around here especially, like WXPN and 93.3 MMR and 104.5, like they're big time radio stations, and especially XPN, man. Getting to play Exponential Festival and Free at Noon and doing a key session, like it's a huge deal. Like those were goals of mine as a young musician to accomplish. And man, it was, especially playing Exponential Fest last September, that was a huge deal to me. And I even said it on stage. I was like, man, I grew up right down the street in Marlton, New Jersey. I've been listening to XPN since I was a kid. Funky Friday is still like
Favorite time.
like it's so cool. And you know what? And this just shows how cool they are. I mean, it's like I was having a tough week like last week. It's just like stuff was going on, and it was just a challenging week. And it was Friday. And I was kind of just like, I was at my house just hanging out by myself, just kind of relaxing. Rare Friday night off. It's just like I need this time to kind of just reset. And I got a couple of messages on my phone. And it was like, "Yo, I just cruising in my car, and XPN's playing you right now on Funky Friday." So cool. I never like take those things for granted, man. That's the stuff that like it's just like so cool to have your song on the radio. I don't think that there's any cooler feeling than that, and especially as someone that values writing songs and just like you just want to have your song be heard. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's no
So
other medium in art that you can listen to that many times. Like it's only a song. You know, you can't watch a TV show a million times. You can't watch a movie a million times. You can't stare at a piece of artwork for a million times. But a song you can listen to a million times.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
also I also say it's the safest form of childbirth in the world because it is like giving birth, and like, your songs are like your kids, and like you're proud of your songs, and you hold them dear, and but once they're created and once they're out there, they're alive and they're for everybody, and then it becomes a part of other people's lives. So like man, and anybody ever like again when you're asked to play one of your songs at someone's wedding, when XPN plays your tune on the radio, when someone goes out of the way to tell you, hey man, like your song like got me through a time. Amazing, because that's me. That's me as the music lover. It's you. Because man, nothing gets you still so excited to this day when I find a song that I love and I want to listen to it 100 times. So I'm still that music lover. I still get that rush when I a song that I just like can't get enough of, or even there's a part of a song that I just need to hear again and again. I mean, that's me. That's me at my core. Like, if I stop playing music tomorrow for whatever reason, I would always be proud of my accomplishments and what I've done. I'm very proud of it. But I'm a music lover, so I'm never gonna like stop listening to music because music just like it takes me to a place that I need to go in the human existence. It's the well that I have to go to in order to feel alive, and I think that's why we need art. It's like even why we need sports sometimes because man, sometimes I just need to go to Citizens Bank Park to feel at the place that makes me happiest and puts me there. So
Well,
that's what I'm going to keep doing, man. You know,
and like music too, sports, it doesn't ask you about your race. It doesn't ask you about your political views. It's just passion. That's all it is.
it's
And
like
like loyalty to a team or a band.
it's so true. And so often we're colorblind when it comes to music and sports. It's one of the few places that we're like we can actually just love.
Mhm.
I wish we could continue to do that as soon as we walk out of that show or that building or but when we're there, it's special.
And
You
in
know,
Philly, it's special. You
and in
know.
Philly, and that's what I mean. It's just like because this city isn't perfect either, man. There's a lot of bullshit that goes on here. There's a lot of sad stuff. There's a lot of crazy fucking people. I often tell people as much like there's times I hate this place, but I love this place because of everything we just mentioned, and because the good outweighs the bad. Luckily,
Yeah.
no place is perfect in this country anymore.
Nope. And we could have done something about it, but we didn't. But we
But
got
we
the
got to keep.
music.
We got the music, and we have the communities that
Yeah.
want to have these conversations and want to support each other. And that's what I'm always going to continue to believe in because that's the thing. That's success to me too. Is when you're a positive member of your community and you make an impact and you inspire and you just want to make other people around you be the best they can be. If you can do that, man, that's a wonderful life, right?
Yeah. Nick, I appreciate this conversation so much. Thank you so much for doing this.
Dog, it certainly won't be the last one, man. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I feel like even before we started the interview, like you and I share a lot of the same loves and passions, and you're just a good person, good man yourself, and I hope you know that what you're doing matters a lot to the community and like what we do as artists, and it just meant a lot to me to be asked to be on your show, man. So thank you for having me. I mean, like I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, wow, it's 1 o'clock. I could have talked to you 3 more hours,
I
bro.
know.
Wild, right?
Good old Zoom Pro, baby.
Good old Zoom Pro. God bless. But man, I mean it, dog, and I hope you have a great week. And what do you have next coming up? What's
Uh,
where
so
are you going next?
so we got next month. We got invited to cover the Borderland Music Festival
Fuck yeah,
up in Buffalo.
yeah,
So it's 3 days. Black Crows are headlining Friday night. Camp,
yeah.
Aggie, Dark Star is performing like a Grateful Dead show from like '77 from Buffalo.
Great.
Uh, Corey Wong's playing. Yeah,
That's
it's
a
good.
great lineup.
Yeah, so 10,000 people they're expecting. So I'm hoping that we'll get access to like talk to the bands and stuff. But
Awesome, man.
yeah. So and then September is crazy because we're doing that weekend. We got My Morning Jacket. We got Kings of Leon. Have you ever heard of this campground called Divided Sky or something? It's up like northern Jersey. Great Divide.
Great Divide in Northern Jersey.
Yeah, it's
No,
a campground, and I guess Dogs in a Pile played 2 nights there. And what they
sure.
do is they do like themed weekends. And so they're doing this Pearl Jam weekend, the weekend of the 21st of September. And they have two cover bands. It's like Friday night, Saturday. They have like activities during the day. And like you can
Will the
camp
10
there.
Club be there, dude? Will the 10 Club uniting
Tent
at this
club,
fest?
yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, so that's that weekend. So we're gonna interview them for the podcast, like the owners, and report from there. But yeah, so it's we got a busy next couple of weeks or next month, I guess.
Well, I love to hear that you're staying busy, man. And
Yeah,
I mean it. This is really, really nice. And I was looking forward to talking to you. And I hope we have more talks like this soon, man.
sounds good, brother. Well, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. Check out also Nick. Yeah, where can everybody find your music at?
I have a lot of stuff out there on all your streaming platforms. I'm pretty sure I'm covered on every streaming platform there is. So wherever you're streaming music out there, NikGreeley, dive in. I have some really fun stuff on YouTube, I think, as well. Some fun videos from operators and Swift Technique, and even some Funk and Bowl stuff. And I would just encourage anybody that is watching too and interested in the music to please follow the Philly music scene in general. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening here. I encourage you to see shows at the Arbor Music Hall and Johnny Brenda's and follow what these promoters are doing in town because they're bringing a lot of great music independently to this area. And we really do have one of the greatest music communities, I think, in the world in Philadelphia. And I don't think you'll disagree if you give it a chance as well. So we hope to see you in Philadelphia soon too, Doc.
Sounds good, my friend. Ladies and
All right,
gentlemen,
brother.
as always, I've been Dog. You've been great. This is the Music Lab podcast.